The Snowchin Mountains have been enveloped in silent cold for over 10 years. Everyone in the region knew that a vastly powerful expert was cultivating on the mountain. Naturally, no one dared to travel near the area, and the mountains remained undisturbed. When the nearby factions saw that this expert was only looking for a place to cultivate and had done nothing else, they were relieved. One day, a heavy snowstorm assailed the Snowchin Mountains with ferocious winds and dandelion-sized snowflakes. As the storm concealed the mountain from view, a foot layer of snow quickly blanketed it. Such a large snowstorm was uncommon even in such an icy climate. Even lower-grade cultivators were unwilling to brave the weather, but it was then that a dazzling azure streak broke through the air and flickered out of sight. 2 hours later, an azure streak appeared tens of thousands of kilometers away, near a mountain range far from the Snowchin Mountains. The light faded from the streak to reveal Han Li. Having cultivated for over 10 years, he had fully refined all of his treasures and even took the great Yin True Flame into his body, completing the first stage of its cultivation. With all of this prepared, there would be nothing that posed a threat apart from an attack from many late-nascent soul cultivators or a fearsome existence on the level of the devil ancestor Yuan Cha. Not only was his cultivation and abilities far greater than when he entered Kunwu Mountain, the sync devils and treasures he acquired should allow him to fight several late-nascent soul cultivators on fair ground. After so many years passed, he reckoned that the Kunwu Mountain commotion should have died down and decided to make his way to his next destination, North Night Island. When half a month passed, cultivators would begin to discover that the white mist covering the Snowchin Mountains had disappeared and had become completely uninhabited. Following the appearance of a suddenly uncontested spirit vein, the nearby factions broke out into war. North Night Island was actually a peninsula, a prefecture away from the Shuang region. Due to the extreme temperatures, even lower-grade cultivators didn't dare to tread outside without protection. And rather than being a peninsula surrounded by water, it was surrounded by endless sheets of ice with glaciers embedded between them. North Night Island was hundreds of thousands of kilometers long with a giant city of ice at the island's northmost edge. It was North Night Palace, the greatest sect in the north. In truth, the sect's power was no weaker than the top 10 devilish and righteous sects of the Great Jin. But because North Night Island was located in what was considered wilderness, the many sects didn't recognize the palace as part of the Great Jin, regarding it as an overseas sect and excluding it from the ranking of sects in the Great Jin. But in the sparsely populated northern regions of the Great Jin, the North Night Palace was even more famous than the top sects of the Great Jin mainland, the Heavenly Devil Sect and the High Zenith Sect. There was no doubt they were the top sect of the north. In the northern regions, the sect was also known by the name of the North Immortal Palace. Countless low-grade vagrant cultivators wished to enter it. North Night Palace was also divided between inner and outer divisions. The inner palace disciples chosen from several great cultivator clans in the region. As for the outer palace disciples, they were chosen from smaller clans and vagrant cultivators from outside the peninsula. Of course, if an outer palace disciple displayed immense talent or achieved great merits, they had the opportunity to become an inner palace disciple. And if one lacked aptitude and still wished to join the outer palace, it would require one to tread the thousands of kilometers of frost surrounding North Night Palace on foot. Since these low-grade cultivators couldn't fly due to the restrictions in the area, they would have to rely on their abilities and cultivation to block the glacial cold. As such, if they would be admitted into the outer palace if they managed to reach it. No matter what they relied on to cross the harsh temperatures, this accomplishment would display some redeeming qualities. Of course, there still weren't many cultivators that succeeded. Many would freeze trying, but for their quest to tread the path of cultivation, the cultivators were drawn like moths to the flame. One day in a region thousands of kilometers away from North Night Palace, there were over 10 figures each covered in fur cloaks. Their bodies sparkled with light as they slowly made their way forward on foot inside a vicious snowstorm. These people have been threading in the frost for over half a month. Their complexions were deathly pale and their footsteps were unsteady. However, none of them dared to stop and rest. The cold wouldn't allow it. They could only forcefully sustain themselves with magic stones and power. But one of these travelers had a particularly unsightly expression, and his breath was ragged. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and took out a medicine bottle from his robe, putting a scarlet medicine pill into his mouth and soon restoring a bit of color to his pale face. The middle-aged man in front was covered in a deep yellow light barrier. Without turning his head, he knowingly said, Fellow Taoist Gu, how many Yang Fire pills do you have? If you can take them regularly, you might have a problem reaching North Night Palace. Future hailstorms will prove several times harsher than the one we just passed. The cultivator who took the medicine pill was a youth in his 20s. He forced a smile and said, "Brother Gu, don't worry, I still have a bottle in reserve. I'll be able to make it past." He seemed somewhat fearful towards the middle-aged man. "That will be good. I don't want to travel together with a person without a chance." As if satisfied with the youth's reply, light flickered from his body and he continued forward. When the others saw this, they hastily head on their way. It was almost as if sticking close to this person was their only chance at entering North Night Palace. When the middle-aged man took several steps forward, he let out a yelp and his steps came to a sudden halt, then turning his head to look above. When the others followed his gaze, they discovered an azure silhouette floating in the sky amidst the snowstorm. Strangely enough, there was an invisible force keeping the snowstorm 10 meters at bay. The middle-aged man was quite exceptional to discover this person in the air. All of the cultivators present were alarmed, and soon their expressions changed. Even core formation cultivators should be able to fly unaffected by the area's restrictions. Could it be that this person was a legendary nascent soul cultivator? Or was it a high-grade cultivator from North Night Palace? But their attire seemed foreign. The cultivators looked at each other in dismay, apprehension filling their hearts. "You are vagrant cultivators looking to enter North Night Palace." The silhouette glowing in azure light spoke with a young voice. Although the middle-aged man's cultivation wasn't very high, he knew much of the world and his mind was roused upon hearing this person's question. He promptly bowed and hastily answered, "This junior's name is Gu Tiank. I am one of those undergoing the trial to join. Does senior have any commands?" As he spoke, he wore an expression of solemn respect. The azure figure calmly said, "You are quite discerning, but I don't have orders in particular. It's just that this land is strange and I can't seem to figure out my war forward. Since you are certain of your path, do you have something to guide you?" Letter 1D65B, letter 1D4FB, letter 1D486, letter 1D486, letter 1D498, letter 1D65A, letter 1D658, letter 1D664, letter 1D662. When the middle-aged man heard this, his expression relaxed, but he still hurriedly replied, "It seems this is senior's first time at North Night Island. Other areas of North Night Island are easy enough to tread, but this region is under the influence of the palace's grand formation. It uses renowned mythic serpent stone as the formation's core, causing a cultivator's spiritual sense to sway in different directions. If anyone were to think they were flying straight, I fear that would never reach the palace. As for juniors like us, we've each bought a soul-stabilizing medallion from the market at North Night Island's entrance. With this magic tool, our sense of direction won't stray." The azure figure seemed stunned. "A soul-stabilizing medallion?" "Yes, although it isn't a rare magic tool, it is required to make it to the palace. It is sold at by a shop from the palace. Furthermore, there are only 30 that are sold throughout a year and they lose effectiveness when the year passes. In order to be safe, I purchased an extra medallion. May I offer it to senior?" The middle-aged man's eyes shifted and he took out a yellow plate from his sleeve. He then held it forward with both hands. The azure silhouette stroked his chin and chuckled, reaching out towards it without any reservations. In a yellow flash, the medallion was summoned into his hand. Needless to say, the azure silhouette was Han Li, who had flown to North Night Island in about a month's time. Originally, he believed he would be able to easily overcome the sect's restrictions with his abilities, but when he arrived at the palace, he couldn't have imagined that his spiritual sense would lapse. For a time, he wasn't able to find the palace's location, much to his surprise and irritation. Because he had come here to pay a friendly visit, it wasn't as if he could break through the restrictions with violent force. Unable to come up with a better option, he happened upon a group of people. "Those people are your companions." Han Li examined the medallion in his hand and put it away in an azure flash. After taking a glance at the others behind him, Gu Tianqi asked with a trace of worry, "These fellow Taoists are my recent acquaintances. We've decided to travel together because we're aiming to enter the North Night Palace together. Is there something odd?" Han Li focused his gaze on a young, beautiful woman amongst them and coldly smiled. "There is certainly someone amongst you that is amiss." "What?" Gu Tianqi asked in surprise. Han Li smirked and calmly said, "There is a demon mixed among you. Wouldn't you say that's a bit odd?" "A demon?" Gu Tianqi's expression vastly changed, and he quickly turned to look at the female cultivator. The other cultivators were shocked and unconsciously stepped away from the woman. She widely opened her eyes and her heart jumped. she hastily explained, "Senior must be joking. I am a disciple of the Shuang region's Ning clan. How could I be a demon?" When the youth from before saw the female cultivator's shocked appearance, he hastily spoke out as the others wore hesitant expressions. "That's right, Senior. Are you mistaken? Fellow Taoist Ning is a true member of the Ning clan. I've seen her several times already." Han Li snorted in dismissal. "A trifling soul fragment dares to feign ignorance in front of me. Reveal yourself." Soon after, Han Li reached out towards her and light flickered from the top of her head. A large azure hand materialized and grabbed her. As soon as the hand appeared, the shocked woman's figure trembled, and her surprise was instantly changed to resentment. Then, her figure blurred and shot 60 meters high into the air. Let alone a chi condensation cultivator, this speed couldn't have belonged to a core formation cultivator. Han Li smirked and waved his sleeve, releasing a yellow streak that disappeared in the next instant. In the following moment, it appeared above the woman's head to reveal a foot-tall monk staff. Han Li cast a spell seal at the treasure, and it blurred, massively increasing in size until it took the form of a 10-meter-tall tiger phantom, fiercely pouncing upon her. The young woman had no time to act. She spouted out black demonic chi to block the attack. A huge explosion sounded out and yellow light flickered. The black chi was dispersed by the strike, offering not the slightest resistance, and the staff fell on top of the woman's head. The woman shrieked and her body immediately tumbled through the air. Meanwhile, a black silhouette flew out from the woman's body and circled in the air before darting to the ground. Then thunder sounded out and a net of golden lightning appeared above the black figure's head. Before she could react, the net fell on top of her. Suddenly, repeated eruptions sounded out and the black demon was no more. These near-instant action left the chi condensation cultivators dumbstruck. Han Li waved his hand, having the monk's staff shrink with a tremble before summoning it back into his sleeve. With that done, Han Li tossed a blue bottle in Gu Tianqi's direction. The middle-aged man unconsciously caught it. "The medicine pills should help you pass through the first. Consider it for trade for the soul-stabilizing medallion." With that said, azure light flared around him and he flew off, disappearing out of sight in the blink of an eye. When the middle-aged man awoken from his stupor, he tightly grasped the bottle with a pleasant surprise. Then the nearby cultivators cried in alarm. The young woman that had earlier fell was waking up. It appeared Han Li's monk staff hadn't left any injuries on her body. With a medallion in his hand, he flew to the North Night Palace. He recalled what had happened earlier with a smile. The soul fragment of a high-grade demon beast was lingering inside the young woman's body. From its strength, it appeared to belong to a grade 8 demon beast at the very least. The demon was quite shrewd to be able to conceal the soul fragment inside the woman's body without her knowledge. If she truly managed to make it into the sect, the demon would have been able to slip past using her body. Since Han Li discovered this in passing, he figured he would exterminate the soul fragment as it would take little effort and prevent any commotion from stirring while he was visiting the sect. Could it be that demon beast was sneaking into the sect through such a clever method for the glacial quintessence? After all, he had heard that the North Night Palace never spread any information of the disappearance of its glacial quintessence. There must be a reason why they were covering it up. As his mind wandered, he flew as fast as a bolt of lightning, and soon found himself in a storm with fist-sized hail. The hail from the storm was sparkling and translucent, pattering against his light barrier with low thuds as if it were made of stone itself. But at Han Li's current cultivation, the huge hailstones were beneath his notice. After flying for an hour, Han Li's eyes lit up as he saw the hail and snow suddenly disappear around him. He spotted a city constructed from ice a short distance ahead of him. The buildings glistened with light from a distance, reflecting sunlight as rainbows. He also spotted a few white clouds sparkling the city. A trace of amazement appeared on Han Li's face. However, his gaze quickly fell onto a huge mountain behind the city. The mountain was gigantic by mortal standards, reaching 30,000 meters in height at the very least, but it wasn't much when compared to Kunwu Mountain. But what truly surprised Han Li was that the mountain was shaped as a gigantic pillar. It was even covered in sparkling, profoundly deep layer of frost. If it weren't for traces of green that emerged from the mountain, he would have believed it to be made entirely of ice. He wasn't able to see into the mountain even with his bright-sight spirit eyes, but he was able to see a group of sparkling buildings on top of it, what he believed to be the North Night Palace. Han Li didn't immediately head over to the city, however. The area along the way seemed to consist of only common glaciers, but there was an invisible restriction placed between them. As an accomplished spell formation master, Han Li sensed that they were fearsome to behold. Had he imprudently charged into them, he feared he would have activated something difficult to deal with. Furthermore, as soon as he escaped the snowstorm, several streaks of light shot out from the city to meet him. Han Li raised his brow when he saw this, but a thought flashed from his mind, and he looked at the medallion in his hand. Not only did the medallion guide the way, but it would also allow the North Night Palace to know the whereabouts of the cultivators looking to enter the sect. As he thought this, the streaks of light instantly arrived before him. A middle-aged man with a delicate expression and two women, all dressed in white robes. The man possessed core formation cultivation, and the two women were foundation establishment cultivators. When the man took a closer look at Han Li, a trace of alarm appeared on his face, and he hastily bowed. "This junior is the Outer Palace Steward Xian. May I please ask your esteemed name and your business coming here?" When these cultivators saw Han Li emerge from the snowstorm, they knew he was no ordinary cultivator, but they hadn't expected a nascent soul cultivator, let alone an unfamiliar mid-grade one. This caused them to grow nervous. Han Li calmly answered, "You don't need to know my name. I've only come here to visit a friend, one of your sect elders." When Xian heard Han Li's answer, his face relaxed and he asked with a friendly tone, "Could you tell us which elder senior is talking about? I will immediately make a report." Han Li slowly said, "I've met Fairy Bai Yai several years ago. Is she present?" "Martial Aunt Bai. She's within the sect, but I believe she's currently in seclusion. I will send a voice transmission talisman to her immediately. Please wait for a moment." The Xian's face became visibly relieved with Han Li's answer, and he immediately sent a talisman. For the time being, Han Li remained still, but his eyes wandered and examined the scenery. In response, Xian blinked and thought to say something, but then a scarlet streak flew out from the snowstorm 400 meters behind them. A yelp sounded out from the streak and quickly turned in their direction. Before the streak arrived before them, the streak let out a hearty laugh. "Did this fellow Taoist come to visit our palace? What is his name?" When the light faded, a pale youth with a head full of gray hair was revealed. His eyes betrayed a profound depth. Han Li narrowed his eyes and examined the person in front of him. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, he discovered that he was a mid-nascent soul cultivator like himself. Before Han Li could reply, Xian happily took a step forward and respectfully saluted the cultivator. "This disciple respectfully pays his respects to Martial Uncle Bai. Was your journey peaceful?" The 100-meter-tall wall of ice surrounding the city wasn't exceptional in height, but its translucent and sparkling material was mesmerizing. But what was particularly eye-catching was that the wall appeared entirely smooth, as if it was carved out from a blade. There wasn't the slightest hint that bricks had ever been used. At the city gate, there were a dozen white-clothed cultivators standing guard. The highest cultivation among them was at Foundation Establishment Cultivation, but more notably, several white apes were squatting amongst them. They had long snow-white hair and a pair of menacing green eyes. The apes were spirit beasts that were long acclimated to the snow. Although their cultivation wasn't very high, they were exceptionally intelligent and easy to tame, leading to many northern cultivators raising them. However, the apes on the walls were particularly large, several times larger than one would expect of a snow ape, and their demonic chi revealed them to be rank 4 and 5 demon beasts, equivalent to the power of a Foundation Establishment cultivator. This attracted much attention to Han Li. As the top sect in the north, the Night Palace should have an original technique to nurture these apes. When the cultivators on the walls saw the pale youth with a head full of gray hair, they repeatedly addressed him as Martial Ancestor Ren. Elder Ren grunted in acknowledgement and boldly walked through the gates. When they saw Han Li following behind their martial ancestor, they didn't dare to question them. But just as Han Li crossed the gate, the snow apes suddenly acted strangely. The spirit beasts whined and backed away from Han Li in a panic. In their alarm, the North Night Palace cultivators scolded the beasts, but the apes continued, lying on their chest and covering the back of their head with their arms, showing submission to Han Li. When Elder Ren saw this, he yelped and shot Han Li a glance with an odd expression. "Do you have a high-grade ape-type spirit beast? Although these apes aren't very powerful, their senses are exceptionally keen." When Han Li heard this, he knew the snow apes sensed the weeping soul beast and they acted out of fear. He indifferently answered, "I do have one, but it isn't all that powerful. I rarely ever use it." Elder Ren smiled and dropped the matter as they entered the city of ice. The city's main road started from the city gate and was exceptionally wide. A layer of smooth ice paved its surface. In the distance, one could see a few people on the roads, all low-grade cultivators wearing yellow and white. Buildings lined the side of the road in an orderly fashion. Rather than a city, it was more appropriate to call it a fortress. Before Han Li could further examine the city, Elder Ren flew in the direction of the huge mountain at a low altitude. Han Li's face betrayed a trace of surprise, and he silently took off after him. A short while later, the two landed on a platform at the center of the mountain. Elder Ren beamed at Han Li and explained, "From now on, Brother Han must follow me on foot as the upper portion of the mountain enters the scope of the inner palace. I am an elder there, but even I must adhere to the rules." Han Li nodded, and the two slowly made their way up a flight of translucent stairs carved from ice. There weren't many disciples that were allowed to enter the inner palace, but the few people they met along the way respectfully saluted the pale youth. Additionally, the elder treated these disciples differently and smiled at them no matter their level of cultivation. Han Li perceived that these inner palace cultivators all possessed exceptional aptitudes, and along the way, he discovered 4 fearsome restrictions that gave him a shiver down his back. It appeared the sect possessed an ingenious spell formation grandmaster. This piqued Han Li's interest in the sect even more. He would have to see whether or not he could converse formation insights with the said expert. As the thoughts appeared in his head, he followed the pale youth to a more obscure path. When they reached the end, they stood before a giant wall of ice that was a kilometer tall. When Han Li spotted it, he raised his brow and looked at it with slight awe. The pale youth raised his hand, and he released a jade tile glowing with green light. A silver mist emerged and wrapped around it before phasing into the wall of ice. A moment later, the wall silently trembled and an opening split through the middle, creating a 6-meter-wide passage. Elder Ren shook his head and explained, "The buildings on the top of the mountain are only for show. In truth, they're used as residences for the inner sect's low-grade cultivators. Higher-grade disciples reside in hidden Arctic Dragon Border, the true location of our palace. Were you not a good friend of Junior Marshal Sister Bai, I wouldn't have dared bring you here." Han Li wore a smile in response, but he was indifferent about the matter. This so-called hidden Arctic Dragon Border was well known in the north. It could hardly be considered a secret. Otherwise, why would this Elder Ren bring him here, or for Bai Yi to tell him about this place? More notably was how this person made such efforts to befriend him, despite being the first time they had met. This puzzled Han Li and caused him to view Elder Ren with greater caution. But when Han Li was offered passage inside, he didn't refuse and walked inside shoulder to shoulder with Elder Ren. The passage was only 3 meters long. He couldn't help but betray shock from his face after what he saw at the other end. There was a verdant valley filled with spring life. It was filled with bright sunlight and rarely seen plants. The valley spanned a couple of kilometers and was enclosed in the green mountain walls. However, there were several jade buildings constructed against the walls in a display of beautiful and impeccable craftsmanship. At the very center of the valley, there were 3 large halls carved from white jade that seemed to take up a third of the valley's space. Han Li glanced at them with a slight change in expression, but astonishment filled his heart. Heaven Void Hall. In his alarm, a thought resounded through Han Li's mind. The 3 Jade Palace halls shared the exact same style as the scattered Star Sea's Heaven Void Hall. They were carved from single portions of fine jade and shined with a faint, gorgeous light. However, these buildings were only a third of the size of Heaven Void Hall when he saw it floating in the air. Han Li forcefully stifled his surprise and took another look. Eventually, he concluded that his impression was correct and that there was no doubt a relationship between the 3 buildings and Heaven Void Hall. However, the gates to the halls laid bare as there were no signs on top of them. With a raised brow, Han Li asked, "This is the sect's inner palace. It is in place of rich spiritual qi as expected, but the 3 large halls appear quite aged. What's the history behind them?" Elder Ren glanced at the 3 buildings and answered, "You're talking about Spirit Void Halls. These 3 buildings were here before the sect was established. It was said that the sect ancestor and several of his good friends used their vast abilities to place them here. They are even more marvelous to behold from the inside." The Spirit Void Halls. Han Li repeated its name with an odd look in his eye. Elder Ren wore a mysterious smile and said, "Do they interest you, Brother Han? Apart from important affairs, the halls will remain sealed. It is only under the approval of half of the sect elders that the spirit void halls are opened. As for the reason, it isn't something that I can tell. Han Li smiled back and asked no further questions. Suspicions of prying into the secrets of another sect could have great consequences. Additionally, even if the three halls had any relationship to Heaven Void Hall, it had little to do with him. The most important treasure of Heaven Void Hall was already in his possession. Fellow Taoist Han, please follow me. The Pure Focus Pavilion is over there. As it seems that Junior Marshal Sister Bai views you importantly, I'll bring you to where she receives her close guests. It is rather serene there. Is that so? I am honored, Han Li smiled. Elder Ren smiled back and took to the air, bringing Han Li over to one of the mountain walls before landing in front of a pavilion. The building was 3 stories tall, with each floor being over 30 meters tall. Its body was constructed from emerald wood and was mostly embedded into the mountain. There was a yellow signboard that hung on its entrance with the words Pure Focus Pavilion engraved in silver lettering. As Han Li in front of it, a white-robed woman walked out from the building. When she saw the two, she momentarily paused in surprise and respectfully said, "I pay my respects, Marshal Senior Ren, and this must be Senior Han." "Correct," Han Li calmly replied. "Is Fairy Bai inside?" The beautiful woman stood slightly to the side and faced Han Li, saying, "Master had just emerged from her seclusion and is stabilizing her magic power in the pavilion. She has sent me to welcome you, Senior Han. I hope you don't take offense." Revealing little surprise, the woman wryly smiled and said, "Marshal Senior Ren, you've put me in a difficult position. You should know that Master has already told me that she does not wish to see you. When Junior Marshal Sister Gong allowed you to see her, she was punished severely after the fact." Elder Ren blushed, but soon he shifted his gaze. "But this time is different. I am accompanying Brother Han. Will she refuse to see me along with Brother Han?" When Han Li heard this, he smirked and said little else. A hesitant expression appeared on her face. "Yanner, let your Marshal Senior Ren in. I will see him." Bai Yai's voice sounded from the pavilion. "As you command." The woman's expression relaxed and she withdrew further to the side. "Marshal Senior Ren, please come in." Elder Ren's face lit up when he heard Bai Yai's voice, and a trace of happiness lit up on his face. His lips immediately moved, sending a voice transmission to Bai Yai inside. "Senior Marshal Brother Ren Bai, how about you talk after you enter? Why are you speaking while fellow Taoist Han is still outside? Do you want us to appear rude?" Han Li stroked his chin and smiled silently. Letter 1D487, letter 1D493, letter 1D486, letter 1D486, letter 1D666, letter 1D486, letter 1D484, letter 1D4F8, letter 1D4AT. With embarrassment on his face, he said, "How careless of me. Brother Han, let us talk inside." "What? I've always seen Brother Ren as a friendly person," Brother Han replied with a beaming smile. He now realized that the reason why the man made such efforts to befriend Han Li was that he held affections for Bai Yai. This greatly reduced Han Li's wariness towards him. With the woman guiding the way, the two entered the Pure Focus Pavilion. The first floor couldn't be considered to be very large as it was only 60 meters wide. There were a set of simple bamboo table and chairs, but there were pots of blooming yellow flowers that surrounded the corners. They were all particularly fragrant. Bai Yai didn't immediately descend to meet them, but when the two took a seat, her voice sounded from above, "Brother Han, please wait a moment. My cultivation technique is a bit peculiar. Once I finish circulating it, I'll head down immediately to see you. Brother Han may as well sample our sect's snow spirit fruit for the time being." Once that was said, Bai Yai's disciple clapped her hands, and 2 young white-robed women walked in, each holding a vermilion wooden plate with a branch filled with thumb-sized translucent berries. Once they placed the plates on the table, the 2 women respectfully withdrew. "The ice spirit fruit is exclusive to our sect. Even our inner palace elders acquire a few every year. Not only is the fruit delicious, but it also contains pure ice spiritual power. If an ice-attributed cultivator regularly consumed them, it would greatly aid their cultivation." When Ren Bai saw the fruits, he introduced them to Han Li and casually tossed one of them into his mouth. When Han Li saw this, he followed suit and tossed one into his mouth. As soon as he bit it, he felt pure glacial qi royal in his mouth. Although he didn't cultivate ice-attributed techniques, he harbored peak glacial flames within his body, such as the purple apex flames and the great yin true flames. As such, he was able to swallow them without any problem. With an interested gaze, he took another one and tossed it into his mouth. When Ren Bai saw this, shock momentarily appeared on his face. The ice spirit fruits were quite famous, providing even nascent soul cultivators benefits in their consumption. However, cultivators who didn't practice ice or fire-attributed cultivations arts would suffer internal frostbite if they carelessly consumed one. Han Li, who emitted pure wood-attributed spiritual power, was able to swallow one and displayed little surprise. Taking two such fruits were something that even a fire-attributed cultivator such as himself didn't dare to do. As Ren Bai was inwardly shocked, footsteps sounded from above to reveal a gorgeous white-robed woman walking down the stairs. Han Li narrowed his eyes and he immediately stood up with a hearty smile. "Fairy Bai, it's been over 10 years. I trust you are doing well." Ren Bai's face happily lit up. "Junior Marshal Sister Bai, you finally agreed to see me. On the day that we parted, I knew that Brother Han wouldn't have made an appointment without reason. For the past several years, I've been waiting for your arrival in the sect. Your arrival has been expected." Bai Yai beamed a smile at Han Li, but then she turned to Ren Bai and her face turned cold. "As for you, Senior Marshal Brother Ren, I wouldn't have agreed to see you if it weren't for Brother Han." Ren Bai rushed to speak. "I've already found a method to resolve the problem. I definitely won't leave you disappointed." Bai Yai shook her head and said, "In that case, speak of it later. Fellow Taoist Han has come a long way. Leave that matter for later." Ren Bai's expression blanked a moment as if something immediately came to mind. He then smiled. "That's fine. I'll find an opportunity to talk about it in more detail in the future. Now, I am already very happy that you've agreed to see me." Bai Yai nodded with a neutral expression and sat down at the main seat at the table. Han Li and Ren Bai sat back down. After examining her, Han Li smiled and said, "Fairy Bai, your cultivation has vastly increased since the last time I saw you." Bai Yai beamed in response. "Brother Han must be joking. My abilities can't hope to compare to yours." She clearly remembered Han Li's display of abilities at the Yin-Yang Cave and Kunwu Mountain, and therefore treated him with the utmost respect. When Ren Bai heard Bai Yai's respect for Han Li, his expression changed, and he examined Han Li once more in surprise. Bai Yai continued, "Brother Han, when you mentioned paying a visit to North Night Palace, you should have had some purpose in mind." Han Li's face turned pensive for a moment before answering with a grin. "Since you raised the question, I will be forthright. It is true, I came to North Night Palace because I had a request for you." Without any reservation, Bai Yai said, "I've yet to forget the many times you've helped me. Please don't hesitate to speak." To tell the truth, even if Han Li hadn't rescued her from the ice that sealed her in the devil-suppressing pagoda, he still possessed the fearsome abilities comparable to a late nascent soul cultivator. She was happy to befriend such a character. Han Li calmly said, "It isn't anything major. I only heard that North Night Island grew profound ice flowers in abundance. I require them as the main ingredient for a medicine pill." Profound ice flowers. Those aren't very easy to find. Although we don't have many that are ripe, there are a few that will soon be ready. I'll have a few of our disciples go look for any myriad-year profound ice. The flower only grows on profound ice that had recently reached that age. There shouldn't be a problem. Han Li grinned. "It is great that you can help me. It would be quite troublesome if I had to handle it alone." Bai Yai wore a beaming smile and said, "It is only a minor affair. However, it isn't something that will finish in a couple of days. Since Brother Han has come to our sect, how about he stay for a few days? I hold your abilities in great admiration. Perhaps we may converse on a few teachings. I am also greatly interested in the techniques of your sect. I have long heard that your palace has several of the most powerful ice-attributed techniques in the Great Jin. Although I don't personally cultivate ice-attribute techniques, perhaps there are benefits to be had." After this brief exchange, a discussion broke out between them. Because the two were in similar realms of cultivation, they began to talk about their troubles of cultivation. As Ren Bai was also a mid-nascent soul cultivator, he also had a few original points to add. As such, time passed in the pavilion in a lively chatter. After half a day passed, Han Li bid farewells, feeling it inappropriate to bother her further after she only recently emerged from secluded cultivation. When Bai Yai saw this, she hadn't urged him to stay. Instead, she commanded her disciple surnamed Yuan to guide Han Li to an esteemed guest building for the time being. He would be notified as soon as the information of profound ice flowers were acquired. With his request accepted, he saluted the two and followed the disciple out from the building. Ren Bai didn't immediately depart. It seemed he had something he wished to further discuss with her. With the beautiful woman guiding Han Li, he was led to a span of dozen buildings built into the mountain wall, all beautifully constructed. It seemed these were the quarters for esteemed guests. Knowing that Bai Ye viewed Han Li in high regard, the beautiful woman was extremely respectful towards Han Li and answered all his questions to the best of her knowledge. In the blink of an eye, the two arrived in front of one of the buildings. Before they entered, a young doll-like woman dressed in maid clothes emerged from the building. The woman immediately stepped forward and bowed. "I pay my respects to Martial Aunt Yuan." Disciple Yuan sternly said, "Martial niece Hua, this is Senior Han, an esteemed guest of the martial ancestor. Serve him well. If you are negligent, there will be punishments." "I will do my utmost." The maid's heart trembled and she answered with a respectful tone. Meanwhile, she stole a glance at Han Li and hastily turned her head away when their eyes met. Han Li replied with a smile. Disciple Yuan turned to Han Li. "Senior Han, if you are dissatisfied with martial niece Hua, we'll replace her immediately." "There is no need, she will do." Han Li shook his head and entered the building in stride. The other two closely followed after him. The building's interior was well arranged and was to Han Li's satisfaction. There were a few simple restrictions that prevented cultivators from prying inside as well. With a few brief words, he sent the disciple away and stayed in the residence. To tell the truth, he was left somewhat tired as he was traveling ever since he left the Snowchin Mountains. He planned on using this time to take a proper rest and bring himself back to peak performance. 2 days passed with Han Li meditating on the second floor. He had yet to emerge. If he were to roam as he wished, he would certainly attract the attention of many high-grade cultivators of the sect. After all, he was a foreign nascent soul-grade cultivator. It was impossible for them to not be on guard. He also had no intention of stirring up trouble. Although he wanted more information on the great Yin True Flame, he wouldn't risk taking action until after he finished refining the profound ice pill. The removal of Nangong Wan's soul seal curse was at the top of his list of priorities. As for the maid that was assigned to serve him, he hadn't spoken to her apart from telling her to wait outside. On the morning of the third day, his face began to stir as he sat in meditation. Azure light flickered from his body and a series of booms sounded out. He opened his eyes with a sullen expression. Someone's spiritual sense had penetrated the building's restrictions without any restraint and directly moved to probe his body. As such, he forcefully repelled it. However, this person's spiritual sense was no weaker than his. It should have belonged to a late nascent soul cultivator. Han Li's mind quickly stirred, but before he could think of how to respond, he heard a delicate child's voice in his ear. "Your fellow Taoist Han, I am Master Arctic Dragon. Would you be interested in meeting me?" Master Arctic Dragon, Han Li's heart trembled. Wasn't he North Night Palace's Grand Elder? He was an exceedingly mysterious person. Although he was known to be vastly powerful in the north, it was rather odd how no one had seen him take action. It was almost as if he became the Grand Elder overnight. Han Li felt a bit odd, but with his current abilities, he had nothing to fear from a late nascent soul cultivator. He hesitated for a moment before resolving himself and promptly replied through his spiritual sense, "Since fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon invited me, how could I refuse such kindness? I will immediately head over to pay my respects." Pleased by Han Li's response, Master Arctic Dragon happily said, "He, very good. My spirit beasts will soon arrive. Fellow Taoist Han will only have to follow it. My residence will be honored by your presence." Soon after, white light flashed, and the threads of spiritual sense disappeared. Han Li didn't immediately move. He stayed still as a light flickered from his eyes, then slowly moving down the stairs. The doll-faced maid was sitting on a chair on the first floor, looking at a jade slip in her hand. When she saw Han Li descend, she stood up in a panic. He simply nodded at her and walked out of the building without paying her any further heed. The maid was left completely shocked, at a loss of what to do. At her cultivation, she couldn't have known what happened on the upper floor. When Han Li walked outside, he instantly spotted a cat-like beast perched on top of a tree. It glanced at Han Li with eyes glowing yellow. Its body glowed with shining golden fur as if it were made of pure gold. He narrowed his eyes and examined the small beast before revealing a trace of surprise. A gold-winged raccoon. These rare creatures should only be in male-female pairs, and it is said their concealment techniques are miraculous beyond compare, Han Li muttered to himself. Then, his expression became blank and he swept his gaze to another tree without discovering anything. Having made sure of Han Li's identity, the raccoon yelped and golden light flashed from a nearby tree to reveal another small beast. The raccoon was slightly smaller than the one he saw first. Han Li's heart trembled. Even with his vast spiritual sense, he wasn't able to detect it in the slightest. The two Goldwind raccoons exchanged a glance and immediately rushed off behind them. Without another thought, Han Li brightly glowed, and he followed after the two beasts in an azure streak. As he continued to follow them, an inconceivable event occurred. One of the Goldwind raccoons blurred and disappeared in front of Han Li. In his alarm, he hastily swept his spiritual sense nearby, but to no avail. He felt his blood run cold. Unwilling to give up, his eyes flickered blue and swept his gaze past his surroundings. He eventually found it near the raccoon guiding him as a shadow-like figure. Having finally found the beast, Han Li inwardly sighed with relief. If there was something he truly couldn't detect roaming near him, he would be ill at ease. The two Goldwind raccoons were only somewhat faster than ordinary flight techniques. Han Li was able to easily trail behind them. On the way, he encountered many inner palace cultivators. They were somewhat shocked upon seeing Han Li's unfamiliar expression, but when they saw the Goldwind raccoon flying in front of him, they seemed to realize something and left the matter alone. Of course, they wouldn't dare to block Han Li in the first place, given his nascent soul cultivation. Following the beasts, he swerved across several buildings before arriving at a stone gate in front of the mountain. The stone gate was about 20 meters tall and shined with a faint yellow light. Talisman characters shined from its surface, as if under the effects of a grand restriction. Han Li came to stop and looked at it with narrow eyes. The Goldwind raccoons blurred and phased into the stone gate as if they were never there. Han Li was stunned. Before he could react, the stone gate flashed and it opened with a rumble. A sparkling passage appeared before him. The passage was covered in a thick layer of frost, as if it were a cave of ice. The Goldwind raccoon stood at the passage entrance and looked at Han Li with bright eyes of intelligence. At that moment, the other raccoon emerged from hiding as well. A chuckle sounded in Han Li's ear. "Fellow Taoist Han, please come in. Please forgive me for not personally welcoming you in." Han Li raised his brow and wordlessly stepped forward. Letter 1D4F, letter 1D667, letter 1D65A, letter 1D486, letter 1D66C, letter 1D65A, letter 1D658, letter 1D664, letter 1D662. When the Goldwind raccoons saw that Han Li was following them, they turned around and leapt in the passage. Easily keeping close behind them, Han Li took several turns and felt the temperature sharply drop as he headed deeper in. Suddenly, the passage dropped straight down. His heart stirred and he briefly paused before dropping down. After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, Han Li finally arrived at the end of the passage and saw that the Goldwind raccoons pounced into a large hall filled with mist. The large hall was made from translucent stone, with lines of glacial light shining from its surface. They seemed to be made from myriad-year profound ice. When Han Li stepped in the hall, he couldn't help but shiver from the cold. But after purple flames roiled across his body, he appeared entirely unaffected. "So it is true, you nurture a flame of extreme cold," a delighted voice echoed through the hall. In his alarm, Han Li looked up and instantly shouted, "The celestial ice flames!" At the corners of the hall, there were huge crystal pillars, surrounding the 20-meter large blue cauldron at the center. This cauldron released threads of blue flames, releasing a wondrous cold and spiritual pressure that Han Li was all too familiar with, much to his shock. Fellow Taoist Han recognizes the celestial ice flames. What a surprise! A yelp sound formed behind the cauldron, and a figure blurred from behind it to reveal a meter-tall figure. A short old dwarf with deep wrinkles, snow-white hair, and blue robes was looking at Han Li with an odd expression. "You are Master Arctic Dragon." Han Li's expression returned to normal, and he saluted the old man. "That's right, I'm Arctic Dragon. However, that name is a title that has been passed down by all grand elders of the North Night Palace. Few know of my true name." A glint flashed from the old man's eyes when he spoke to Han Li, and he calmly waved his hand, striking one of the pillars in the room with a spell seal. With a flash, white light brightly glowed from several places from the hall's floors, summoning several white meditation mats. With a kindly tone, the old man said, "Because I rarely have guests, I don't have any tables or chairs prepared. I hope you don't take offense." "You are already being too polite. Cultivators like us aren't supposed to pay attention to such things in the first place. Han Li smiled and took several steps forward before taking a seat on one of the mats and taking another look at the huge cauldron. At that moment, he realized that cauldron appeared rather similar to the Heaven Void cauldron. The celestial ice flames were completely restricted by the cauldron, preventing any of its power from leaking, else the hall would have long been frozen over. This puzzled Han Li greatly. Master Arctic Dragon sat down on the mat across from Han Li and sincerely said, "Although I have nothing to discuss with you in particular, my senses tell me you're the one I've spent years searching for." Stifling his bewilderment, Han Li slowly said, "I'm a bit at a loss over what you said. Could you tell me what you meant by that?" Arctic Dragon smiled and said, "Brother Han doesn't need to be nervous. I've invited you here because you were able to consume 2 ice spirit fruits without a problem. But now that I see that you cultivate flames of extreme cold, I have no further tests for you. You're the person I've been searching for." Han Li pursed his lips and frowned. "Why would you be looking for me?" Arctic Dragon's face turned stern and he solemnly asked, "Could I ask the name of the purple flame of yours? Although I know of many purple spirit flames, I've never heard of one that was ice attributed. Please enlighten me." Han Li glanced at the purple flames wrapping around his body and calmly said, "The flames were something I produced from want and cultivation. There is no official name for them. For the sake of convenience, I've named them the purple apex flames. Their power can't be much better than the celestial ice flames, as powerful as they may be." Of course, Han Li wouldn't give the truth until he understood how things stood. When Arctic Dragon heard Han Li, he smiled with satisfaction and said, "Your words are true. Although the purple apex flames were born of a fusion, its cold nature is impure. If it had gone through specialized refinement, its power should be even greater." A trace of amazement was betrayed from his face. "Even greater? I've already refined the flames once before. How can they become purer?" It seems Brother Han doesn't understand much of cold flames. Few ice flames of these kinds exist in the world. However, all of these flames have a particular method to purify them further, with the exception being flames used for refinement. Of course, the final increase in strength would depend on one's personal skill and the strength of the flame itself. That doesn't mean it can become several times greater in strength like the celestial ice flames. The old man twirled his beard and looked at the huge cauldron with a trace of pride. Han Li gasped in shock, and he immediately lifted his fingers and produced a thread of purple flame on top of it. "Several times its strength. You mean to say that this flame can be purified?" "That is an ice flame that has been refined once before, but the process is not complete. Did fellow Taoist compress it with magic power to reach that stage? Not only does such a reckless method waste your magic power, but it only results in a sliver of flame being refined." "Many thanks for your guidance." Han Li paused for a moment and took another look at the old dwarf. "Could fellow Taoist tell me why you were looking for me?" "Before I answer that, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you. The celestial ice flames are known to sparsely few, but you were able to recognize them at a glance. Could it be you've seen them before?" When Han Li heard this, his heart roiled and he calmly replied, "I've seen the flames before in a record, but because it was unique I've kept it in mind." Since North Night Palace had an unclear relation to Heaven Void Hall, he didn't dare to utter the truth. Han Li's blunt answer momentarily stunned Arctic Dragon, but he soon chuckled. "It seems I've been meddlesome. The celestial ice flames is something that can be considered exclusive to our North Night Palace. In that case, I will speak truthfully. As you may have guessed, I need the assistance of Brother Han's ice flames." With that said, the old dwarf's expression turned grave. Han Li remained silent, knowing that Arctic Dragon would be sure to continue and explain himself. But then Arctic Dragon paused and looked at Han Li with a strange expression, asking, "Brother Han, what do you feel about my cultivation? Are you able to tell any difference between me and other late-nascent soul cultivators?" Given what Arctic Dragon said, Han Li used his spiritual sense to examine him without any reserve. He then hesitantly said, "You are undoubtedly a late-nascent soul cultivator, but your spiritual sense and cultivation is much stronger than other grand cultivators I've seen before. In this manner, you are a bit different." Arctic Dragon calmly said, "As of current, my cultivation has reached the peak of late nascent soul stage. I'm only a half step away from deity transformation stage. To tell the truth, I've been lingering at this stage for 300 years. I've taken several medicine pills and used many secret techniques before finally breaking through halfway to deity transformation cultivation. My current appearance is a result of consuming medicine pills recklessly." A sudden realization shook Han Li. So it was like that. Have you comprehended a few abilities of deity transformation stage? He. With my current appearance, I've been avoiding seeing other people. I've remained in secluded cultivation, researching methods to break through the last meager barrier to deity transformation stage. As a result of those years of hard work, I eventually found a final solution after looking through several ancient records. The method is said to have a 30% chance of breaking the bottleneck and allowing me to ascend to deity transformation stage. You wish to draw the support of a flame of great cold. In that case, shouldn't many cultivators in your sect cultivate ice attribute techniques? It shouldn't be hard to find an elder who cultivates ice flames. Why me? This method requires 5 different nascent soul cultivators, each wielding a different ice flame. The North Night Palace has 2 cultivators that possess an ice flame, and I also managed to find 2 from outside the sect. I've been searching for the final user for several years, but I've yet to find one until now. With that said, the old dwarf's face was filled with excitement. Han Li breathed and promptly asked, 5 different flames of extreme cold. That is a rather demanding requirement. It is possible only something that your sect can achieve, as no other sects would be able to gather so many cultivators that use glacial flames. Nevertheless, this method should only be effective towards ice-attributed cultivators. Is that right? Master Arctic Dragon tensed his brow and replied, yes, this method is only usable for cultivators with ice-attributed cultivation techniques. 3 of the other 4 cultivators have ice-attributed cultivation techniques as well. Only you and 1 other have come across in glacial flame unintentionally. A cold light glinted in Han Li's eyes. In that case, how do you plan on compensating me? Although I don't know how I am involved in this process, I am sure it consumes a great deal of vitality on my part, not to mention any potential risks that are involved. Arctic Dragon appeared delighted by Han Li's words. I am happy you are such a straightforward person. If you have any conditions, please state them. On my name sheet, I am willing to fulfill what I can so long as you assist us. Han Li smiled at his straightforward words. Fellow Taoist Shi, I'll be blunt. I'll need a detailed explanation of this method to provoke a breakthrough. If the danger is within acceptable ranges, I am willing to help. But if the danger is too great, I won't accept no matter how great your price. Of course, I'll be taking the secret technique as a reward as well. Arctic Dragon confidently said, it is no problem. I guarantee that this method poses no danger to you or any of the others that are helping me. Of course, a bit of damage to your vitality is unavoidable. That will be no problem. Furthermore, you should know my reason for coming here. I require a few profound ice flowers to refine medicine. Although I've already asked Fairy Bai for assistance, I would feel more at ease if you also agreed to help. With the same smile on his face, Arctic Dragon answered, that is only a trivial matter. I will immediately dispatch the full force of the palace. They'll find the flowers as soon as possible. Additionally, I'd like the technique to refine ice flames that you spoke of. I'd like to use it to increase the strength of my purple apex flames. That's fine. As for my last condition, I am interested in looking in your sect's record storage. I heard your palace was a sect that has existed since antiquity. That will be fine. Go ahead. After some brief hesitation, Arctic Dragon eventually nodded. With a satisfied smile, Han Li said, Fellow Taoist, she is quite straightforward. I'll do my best when the time comes. Haha, fellow Taoist Han, please wait here for a moment. I will give you a copy of the ice flame refinement technique. Arctic Dragon slapped his storage pouch to summon a white jade slip and began to record the technique in it. Han Li silently waited with a happy expression. A short moment, the Arctic Dragon was done, and he handed over an additional jade slip and pendant towards Han Li. Han Li reached out for them and summoned the 3 items into his hand. Arctic Dragon looked at Han Li and sternly said, the other jade slip contains the method I researched to break through cultivation realms, but remember that this is only to be used for late nascent soul cultivator. As for the jade pendant, it is used to enter our hidden scripture pavilion, but there is something I must make clear first. Although it holds countless records, many of them have particular restrictions placed on them, preventing them from being duplicated. You will have to commit them to memory. Furthermore, I'm only giving you access for 10 days. I will take back the pendant when the time comes. Do you have any objections? Han Li paused in surprise and looked at the jade pendant in his hand. A wry smile appeared on his mouth. Only 10 days. Since I've already taken these items, I suppose I can't give them back to you. Had I known this would happen, I would have made myself more clear. What is done is done. Fellow Taoist doesn't want to bite off more than he can chew. Arctic Dragon beamed at Han Li with a cunning expression. With a chuckle, Han Li stood up and said, "Now that I've taken these things, how can I go back on the deal? I'll be going to take a look at your hidden scripture pavilion. If there is any news of the profound ice flower, you can find me there." Arctic Dragon stood up as well. "I hope you'll forgive me if I don't see you off. I'll have to gather the others immediately. If you have no pressing business, you may stay at the palace for a while longer. If you require anything for your cultivation, please refer to my junior martial sister Bai. I will order her to accept your request to the best of her ability." "Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist." Han Li briefly saluted before flying out in a bright azure streak. When Arctic Dragon saw Han Li disappear, his smile gradually faded. Two of the crystalline pillars in the hall then flashed with light to reveal a man and a woman. The man appeared to be in his 40s. He had a common appearance and wore azure scholar robes. The woman was in her 20s, wearing white robes and displaying a beautiful face. She bore a strong resemblance to Bai Yai, but her face was extremely pale, to the point where it was almost translucent. Wearing an ever-tense expression, the middle-aged scholar frowned and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, we haven't tested the purple flames yet. Will there be any problems? What if they aren't strong enough?" Arctic Dragon let out a long sigh and he shook his head. "The purple flames appear somewhat impure, but they contain the celestial ice flames. It shouldn't be lacking in power, and we can't afford to wait. If we don't take the risk, I fear there won't be another opportunity." With blatant worry, the scholar said, "Senior Marshal Brother's lifespan has already reached that point. To the best of my knowledge, Myriad Demon Valley has become restless once more. Many of our disciples have discovered traces of low-grade demons at North Night Island's outskirts. Additionally, many disciples that have been recently returned or joined have had high-grade demons possessing them. As per your command, we've been secretly monitoring them in secret." With an unchanged expression, Arctic Dragon calmly said, "Let's not alert them just yet. It has been nearly 1,000 years since the demons last invaded. This is to be expected. What is there to fear?" The middle-aged scholar hesitantly said, "But Senior Marshal Brother wishes to make a breakthrough. Isn't this taking too much of a risk? Wouldn't it be better to do this after repelling the demons?" Arctic Dragon twirled his beard and calmly said, "Repel them. How much time will that take? Each time Myriad Demon Valley took charge, they would surround us for a dozen years. I only have a sparse few years of life remaining. Furthermore, fellow Taoists Ma and Li are rushing over, not to mention fellow Taoist Han who is already here. When the time comes, do you believe they will sit still as demons attack us?" The white-robed woman then broke her silence. "However, our glacial quintessence has already been seized by a traitor. Why can't we make the matter public? Why must we provoke the attack from so many demons?" Arctic Dragon sighed and turned his sights to the huge cauldron nearby that was lit with blue flames. "That's a rather simple way of thinking. If we were to make this matter known, our prestige would plummet and harm our reputation as the greatest sect of the North. And why would the demons believe that we have no glacial quintessence? The announcement would only be in vain. You should understand that, when the 10,000-year period is over, the ice jade caves within Void Spirit Hall will open. If we are lucky, we should be able to gather some glacial quintessence. The outside only knows our sect to have a single bottle of it, but who could have known we've been using it to cultivate and maintain our 3 great ice flames throughout generations? It wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Fortunately, we lost the bottle of glacial quintessence just before the ice jade caves open, or else several generations of disciples would be unable to cultivate the 3 flames." When the scholar heard this, he could only wryly smile. Then Arctic Dragon changed the subject and said, "Your black ice flames and ice phoenix flames have become weaker. When we acquire more glacial quintessence, take a few drops to restore them to strength. They will increase my odds of breaking through." "Many thanks, Senior Marshal Brother," the middle-aged scholar happily shouted. Even a trace of happiness was betrayed by the white-robed woman's icy exterior. Glacial quintessence was something of extreme importance. Junior Marshal Sister Bai, return and ask Yei about fellow Taoist Han. This person was involved in the matters of Kunwu Hall 10 years ago. Many great cultivators fell there, but he managed to make it out alive. He should be an individual of exceptional skill. "I understand. I will ask my younger sister of this matter," the white-robed woman indifferently replied. Letter 1D557, letter 1D42B, letter 1D41E, letter 1D556, letter 1D568, letter 1D41E, letter 1D41C, letter 1D5FC, letter 1D696. "Good, you may leave now." Arctic Dragon nodded with satisfaction. The two promptly took their leave and left in streaks of light. Arctic Dragon remained in place and turned around towards the cauldron, muttering to himself. Were there anyone remaining in the hall, they would have clearly heard the words, Heaven Void Cauldron. Han Li now stood in a huge hidden room with endless rows of 3-meter-tall steps carved from fine jade. He appeared baffled. The stairs were at least 300 meters wide, and each of the steps sparkled with various colored barriers, each containing a variety of their own jade slips. At the other end of the room, there was a flight of stairs heading upwards. The floors seemed to be separated by thick, dense stone. Shocked, Han Li took a shallow breath and turned to an old man dressed in the sect's attire. This is the palace's hidden scripture pavilion. That's right, Senior. There are 7 separate floors of the hidden scripture pavilion. Every floor has different types of records deposited with rarer records on higher floors. There are separators on each floor, preventing disciples from grabbing the wrong jade slips. When Senior wishes to head down, please give me the order. I will be waiting outside on your command. The old man spoke with a lowered head, but his body displayed the spiritual pressure of a mid-core formation cultivator. Han Li nodded. I understand, you may head out. Yes, the old man respectfully withdrew and closed the stone gate behind him. With Han Li alone in the room, he bluntly walked in front of one of the light barriers and waved his hand through it. With a light bang, the light barrier shattered, revealing 3 jade slips underneath. He took them into his hand and immersed his spiritual sense into them. At the same moment Han Li was perusing the records, 2 white-robed women were speaking on the 2nd floor of the Pure Focus Pavilion. One of them was Bai Yai, and the other was the woman that was earlier speaking with Master Arctic Dragon. The 2 bore a strong resemblance, but one of them had a gentle beauty while the other appeared ice-cold. Bai Yai stood next to the window with one hand resting on the windowsill and the other fiddling with her hair. She frowned, appearing somewhat annoyed. Second sister, I've already told you, I don't know much about this fellow Taoist Han. Although he claims to be an overseas cultivator, the Yin Sifting Sect and the Endless Sky Temple both claimed he was from the Heavenly South. His abilities are on par with a late nascent soul cultivator, and managed to even match the silver-winged night fiend in the Yin-Yang cave. I'm also not sure as to how he managed to escape Kunwu Mountain as well. Seventh sister, please don't take offense. It is rather hard to believe how a mid-stage cultivator from an area as remote as the Heavenly South could possess such abilities. The other white-robed woman had a smooth voice, but it was cold and lacking emotion. Bai Yai didn't seem to mind the other woman's tone, as she knew it was caused by reaching the height of her cultivation technique. But she was losing her patience with repeated questioning about Han Li. Bai Yai took several steps away from the window and said, I've only known him for a short time, having met him the last time I left the sect. I'm unable to offer more details. Everything I've told you is true. What's going on? Why has the Grand Elder suddenly grown so interested in fellow Taoist Han? This is the person Senior Martial Brother Arctic Dragon has been searching for, a person who harbors a flame of extreme cold. Speaking of which, why haven't you mentioned this person to us? The last time I met him was 10 years ago at Kunwu Mountain. I couldn't have known if he would return from the mountain alive. What point would there be in mentioning him? In that case, I won't ask anything else, the white-robed woman bluntly said. Since fellow Taoist Han possess such vast abilities, it'll be best to rope him in and make certain of the flame's true power. Bai Yai frowned and reluctantly said, I understand. If there is an opportunity, I will look into it. Very good, then I will take my leave. With that said, the white-robed woman expressionlessly descended to the 1st floor. Bai Yai didn't reply. She merely looked out the window and watched her senior martial sister fly through the air with an expressionless gaze. Time quickly passed by, and Han Li found himself on his 8th day in the hidden scripture pavilion. He had already looked through several interesting records and had received much useful knowledge. However, he only managed to look at the 3rd floor. When Han Li thought of this, he felt that it was a pity. He reckoned he wouldn't have enough time to look at the records on the 4th floor. At that moment, he was looking through a record detailing rare spirit medicines found during ancient times. Suddenly, a fiery streak entered the hall. In his alarm, he reached out to the streak and took it into his hand. It was a burning voice transmission talisman. Once he read it with his spiritual sense, a trace of happiness appeared on his face. He put away the jade slip in his hand on one of the tables and immediately flew out. After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, an azure streak arrived in front of the Pure Focus Pavilion. A graceful woman in white robes was waiting there for him. When the light faded, Han Li faced Bai Yai and quickly asked, Fellow Taoist Bai, is it true you found the profound ice flower? Bai Yai looked at Han Li and sweetly smiled. Of course. Originally, I believed it would take a month to find one, but I didn't expect that you would stir up the Grand Elder to take action. With so many people looking for the profound ice flower, it is only natural that it was found quickly. Restraining the joy in his heart, Han Li said, "That's great, let's go find it." Bai Yai pursed her lips and smiled. Of course. I've been waiting here to guide you. However, the discovered location of the flower is rather far away. It is already outside the range of North Night Island. The trip will take several days. Han Li bellowed with laughter and forthrightly said, "That's nothing. So long as I can pluck the profound ice flower, I wouldn't make journeying for even a year. Let's go." When Bai Yai heard Han Li, she beamed a smile at him and remained silent. The two didn't delay in the slightest, and soon left the hidden Arctic dragon border and left the city to head north. On the way, Bai Yai explained the precise location of the profound ice flower. The den of a group of snow rage beasts. Bai Yai nodded and said, "That's right. When the disciple that discovered the myriad-year profound ice, he was inattentive and was discovered by the snow rage beasts. He was pursued over 50 kilometers and was heavily injured. He nearly died." "Oh, then what grade are these snow rage beasts?" Han Li asked with interest. Letter 1D41F, letter 1D5FF, letter 1D41E, letter 1D68E, letter 1D6A0, letter 1D41E. Letter 1D554, letter 1D560, letter 1D696. Bai Yai smiled. "I fear that I must disappoint you. They are only grade 6 beasts. I fear they aren't enough to warrant your attention." "Then there really is no point in capturing them alive," Han Li chuckled. "However, once we leave North Night Island, we will be entering the Ice Sea, the domain of demon beasts. There are countless demon beasts here, and the farther we go from the island, the higher the grade of demon beasts we will encounter. Of course, several days of travel is nowhere near enough to encounter a grade 8 demon beast. However, many fearsome demons lingered in the depths of the Ice Sea, including grade 10 demons. Even the Grand Elder of the previous generation once spotted a grade 10 ice phoenix possessing true ancient blood. This single beast possessed enough power to overtake most of the palace," Bai Yai said with a grave tone. A grade 10 ice phoenix, Han Li felt his heart jump. There is no need to worry. The establishing ancestor of the palace had an agreement with the most powerful demon beasts of the Ice Sea after fiercely battling with them. So long as we don't wantonly attack the high-grade demon beasts of the Ice Sea, the high-grade demon beasts will not appear within 500,000 kilometers of North Night Island. Low-grade demon beasts aren't subjected to these restrictions. As for the demons that have attacked our palace in the past, they all gathered from other regions of the Great Jin. If the Ice Sea demons were to involve themselves, our palace would have been destroyed several times over. Our North Night Palace was able to flourish until now because of this." Following a moment of alarm, a smile appeared on Han Li's face. "So it was like that. Does that mean there shouldn't be any danger on our trip?" Bai Yai shook her head. "Not necessarily. An agreement is only an agreement. Occasionally, there will be high-grade demon beasts that are thrown into a range and will come charging towards the sect. As a result, there will be palace disciples that fall to demon beasts every year. It'll be best to be careful." Han Li looked at the pure glaciers below him and indifferently said, "But this journey will only last several days. How could our luck fail us in such a short time?" Soon after, his body flared with azure light and his speed increased. In truth, Bai Yai was only making conversation. But when she saw him, her eyes began to wander and her body flared with light as well, following Han Li closely. On the way, they hadn't discovered any trace of high-grade demon beasts. Additionally, they hadn't spotted many low-grade demon beasts either. After 3 entire days of continuous flight, they arrived at a huge glacial ravine. "This is the lair of the ice rage beasts." Han Li glanced down at an unfathomably deep ravine in the ice and frowned. Biting glacial winds blew out from it without end. Bai Yai floated at Han Li's side and looked around them. Then she confidently said, "That's right, this is the place." "In that case, let's have them come out." Han Li nodded and formed a spell seal. His entire body flickered with light and specks of starlight emerged in front of him. Then, with a crackle, they burst into scarlet fist-sized fireballs. "Go!" With a sweep of his sleeve, a wall of flame enveloped the fireballs and launched them into the ravine, soon disappearing from sight. Han Li and Bai Yai proceeded to stare down with complete focus. A long while later, silence still filled the ravine. The sounds resulting from the fireball's eruption never occurred. Han Li and Bai Yai looked at each other with an odd expression. Han Li stroked his chin and said, "They are only grade 6 demon beasts. They shouldn't be able to silently destroy the fireballs. It seems there is a more formidable beast down there." Bai Yai wore a solemn expression. It is possible. The disciple hadn't tread deep into the ravine. They only saw the profound ice flower from a distance before being discovered by the ice rage beasts. Letter 1D65B, letter 1D4FB, letter 1D486, letter 1D486, letter 1D498, letter 1D65A, letter 1D658, letter 1D664, letter 1D662. Hee, that's fine. I'll just use my spirit beast to draw them out, Han Li said with an indifferent tone. He slapped his storage pouch and summoned a dozen white streaks that circled once around him. They were foot-long, six-winged frost centipedes, each possessing translucent wings and a fiendish appearance. Han Li let out a low cry and pointed at the six-winged frost centipedes in the air. The centipedes buzzed with joy and wrapped themselves in glacial light as they dived down. Bai Yai betrayed surprise, but she said nothing. Han Li had no concern for the six-winged frost centipedes. Even a grade 8 demon beast wouldn't be able to escape them if they launched a joint attack. And not long after, the sounds of battle echoed from the ravine, drawing closer, turning louder before the battle was dragged outside. Han Li pursed his lips and silently waved his sleeve, releasing a dozen golden streaks from his sleeve. They turned into a dozen foot-long golden swords, floating still above the ice reveal as they sparkled with light. Bai Yai smiled, believing Han Li would be able to deal with the demon beasts with ease. A short moment later, a series of monstrous roars sounded from below. Afterwards, a series of white mist blew out from them, containing 8 snow-white lion-like beasts. They appeared extremely frightened as if they were fleeing for their lives. They were the so-called snow rage beasts. He launched a sword seal without any hesitation, causing several of his swords to tremble and launch themselves forward, turning into dazzling 3-meter-long streaks. Like a flash of lightning, they slashed across the white mist and arrived before the beasts. Before they could even respond, the sword streaks coiled around them. With several miserable screams, the beasts were cleaved into two, and their corpses sank back into the pit. Soon after, a world-shaking roar rumbled from the ground, followed by a huge explosion. A dense wind shot out from the ravine's depths. Han Li narrowed his eyes, saw an enraged 10-meter-tall demon beast. It appeared mostly the same as the ice rage beasts, but its fur glistened with silver light, and its body was an entire size larger. "Yeah, that isn't a snow rage beast, that's an ice fiend," Bai Yai yelped in shock. "What is such a high-grade demon beast doing here?" Han Li blinked and took no further action. A dozen white streaks then flew out from the ravine and spat icy chi at the silver-furred beast. Although the demon beast was only a grade 7 demon beast, it had no fear of the six-winged frost centipede's attack. Rather, the attack only served to incite it further. Han Li raised his brow and coldly snorted. He extended his finger and azure light flickered from its tip, commanding the flying swords above him to strike at the beast. At the side, Bai Yai suddenly said, "Please wait a moment. The ice fiend is a rare ice and wind-attributed demon beast. It will be useful if I can capture it." Han Li gave her an easy smile. "In that case, I'll handle it and save you the trouble." With that said, he spat out a ball of purple flames. Then, the flames let out a chirp, shaped into a lifelike foot-wide bird before fluttering towards the ice fiend. When the dozen six-winged frost centipedes saw the bird approach, they immediately scattered in fear, leaving the ice fiend alone in the vicinity. Although the ice fiend still hadn't gained higher awareness, it still possessed a trace of intelligence. Under these circumstances, it could tell the purple flame bird was fearsome and immediately swept upwind, intending to escape. Han Li let out a cold snort, and a light glinted from his eye. The beast immediately needles assailing its mind, and it let out a howl as it fell from the air. Han Li launched an attack with his spiritual sense, using the soulfright thorn. Although Han Li hadn't used the full strength of this attack, his spiritual sense was still equivalent in strength to a late-nascent soul cultivator. It wasn't an attack that it could withstand. With the opportunity given, the purple flame bird arrived in front of the beast and circled it. As a large crackle sounded, a large ball of purple mist surrounded the ice fiend and enveloped the purple flame bird immediately unfolded its wings and disappeared into Han Li's body. After the purple mist of light disappeared, a 30-meter-tall block of purple ice was revealed, sealing the ice fiend within it. The storm surrounding the beast had slowly disappeared as well, and the block of ice shortly crashed to the ground. To the side, Bai Yai came to her senses after being stunned by the entire affair. She summoned a large hand of white qi to lift the ice to her. "Many thanks, Brother Han. I'll take you up on your offer." Bai Yai sweetly smiled at Han Li, and she flicked her ringer, producing a sparkling black spirit beast pouch. She tossed the bag into the air and a mist flew out from it, wrapping around the huge block of ice and drawing into the pouch. Seeing Bai Yai's satisfied expression, Han Li smiled and pointed to the six-winged frost centipedes circling in the air. With a series of hisses, the centipedes let out balls of icy mist and instantly disappeared. Bai Yai was startled by the sight of this, but Han Li soon explained, "While I use the profound ice flower to refine medicine, I don't want any low-grade demon beasts to disturb us. The centipedes will be protecting us nearby." Bai Yai sweetly smiled and nodded. The two soon flew down the huge ravine in streaks of light. The ravine was pitch black. Apart from icy winds continuously circling the two, it was reminiscent of the two entering the yin-yang cave over 10 years ago. But when they quickly arrived at the bottom, the crystalline walls of the ravine could be seen. They were formed from profound ice, suitable materials for ice-attributed magic tools. However, only myriad-year profound ice could be considered a rare, top-grade tool refinement material. Ordinary profound ice was beneath the notice of the two nascent soul cultivators. But when the two arrived at the very end of the ravine, they spotted a crystal vein that emitted a white light. Although it was jagged, there was a point on it that was clearly myriad-year profound ice. Han Li's eyes then focused on the three white flowers on the wall. These small flowers were only the size of a fist and appeared to be common wildflowers, but their roots were dug into the myriad-year profound ice and faint icy qi continuously roamed around it. "3 profound ice flowers, this should be enough," Han Li muttered. "There is quite a bit of myriad-year profound ice here. It appears that Disciple made quite an accomplishment. I'll have to make sure he is rewarded." Bai Yai examined the profound ice and wore a smile. Han Li then turned to Bai Yai and said, "I will be plucking the flowers immediately for pill concoction. I've already prepared the other materials. Will Fairy Bai be returning first?" With some thought, she said with a warm tone, "How long will Brother Han need to refine the pills? Would it be better for me to take a look at our surroundings? We aren't far from North Night Valley. With the appearance of the Grade 7 Ice Fiend, I feel somewhat ill at ease. I'll be taking this opportunity to look around." After a short pause, Han Li gave a word of warning. "That would be good. Be careful." "Don't worry, I'm only doing this in case of contingencies. The Grade 7 Ice Fiend most likely came into the ravine unintentionally. This hadn't happened before. I'll be taking off." Bai Yai pursed her lips into a bewitching smile and streaked into the air. When Bai Yai left his sight, Han Li looked back down and observed the 3 profound ice flowers. After some contemplation, he slapped his storage pouch and summoned a dozen various colored streaks, attaching themselves into the surrounding crystal walls. A blue mist then completely enveloped the vicinity. With that done, buzzing shook the air as a swarm of golden beetles flew out from Han Li's body, disappearing into the mist as specks of light. So long as nothing particularly powerful approached, the mist should be able to protect him as he refined the profound ice pill. Feeling at ease, Han Li raised his hand and summoned a fist-sized cauldron that sparkled with silver light. As it floated in front of him, he summoned a variety of wooden boxes and small bottles from his storage pouch onto the ground. He then changed his focus to the 3 flowers. He waved his sleeve, producing 3 golden streaks that wound around the flowers, carving out the myriad-year profound ice they were attached to. He then pointed to the ground, and 3-foot-long jade boxes warped out from sight and oddly reappeared below the 3 flowers. Seeing that the flowers were gathered without a problem, he formed a hand gesture with a satisfied expression on his face. He then launched a series of spell seals into the blue mist surrounding him. The mist roiled around him and massively expanded, soon submerging the entire ravine from sight. Apart from the icy winds whistling in the ravine, there was only silence. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The blue mist was exceptionally dense at the bottom of the ravine and showed no signs of dissolving. Then light flashed from the distant sky, and 3 streaks arrived at great speed, appearing before the ravine in only a moment. The streak of silver light at the front of the 3 appeared dim, as if its owner had been injured. The red and green lights following it appeared dazzling and overbearing. It was clear the silver light was being pursued. The silver light faded to reveal a gorgeous white-robed woman. Her complexion was pale, and a layer of faint green qi covered her. She was Bai Yei, who had last been seen 3 days ago. She had somehow encountered mishaps and had been pursued until now. Her bodies were also under the effects of a vicious poison that even a mid-nascent soul cultivator couldn't resist. When she arrived above the ravine, she quickly looked down and saw a roiling blue mist. She let out a sigh, relieved by the sight. At that moment, the red and green lights pursuing her were only a few hundred meters away. A man's voice spoke from the green light. "What? You've decided to stop running, knowing how badly you're poisoned. If you've decided to forfeit your life, then this lord won't hesitate to take it." The tone of the voice was sinister and harsh. Bayei coldly snorted and dived into the ravine, paying no attention to them. With several silver flashes, she vanished. The two streaks of light rushed to the opening of the ravine, and the figure of a man and a woman can be glimpsed from within them. The two looked down at the blue mist with some hesitation. The two were metamorphosed demon beasts with fully awakened intelligence, no lesser than that of a human. They were bewildered as to why Bai Yei stopped running and decided to hide in the restrictions below. Just as the two threw to use their spiritual sense to explore below them, white mist rolled around them, following the appearance of a dozen snow-white winged insects, all possessing a sinister appearance. Six-winged frost centipedes. The woman within the red light trembled as she shouted with joy. "Those are six-winged frost centipedes," the man in the green light shouted. "That's great. So long as we can devour these insects, we'll be able to massively boost our cultivation through yin-yang convergence." The woman bellowed with hoarse laughter, and her body burst in flames, releasing a dozen fire serpents. They were each a foot long, and each of them had wings on their backs. With flames trailing from their mouths, they aggressively pounced towards the centipedes. For a time, flames and icy chi clashed, producing deafening explosions. At that moment, the red light disappeared to reveal the woman's full appearance. She had a slender figure wearing crimson clothes, a pair of green eyes and scarlet scales that freckled her pretty face. A snake's tongue would also occasionally flick out from her mouth. She was a grade 8 demon serpent. With blatant greed on her face, red light flared from the demon as she personally set herself on capturing each of the centipedes. Then, a series of drones suddenly sounded from underneath her. Specks of golden light suddenly shot out from the blue mist in the ravine, condensing into a 10-meter-wide golden cloud that charged at the two demons. When the man saw the golden cloud, he swept his sleeve without another thought and released a flood dragon of green chi to meet the attack. The man coldly smiled upon seeing the dragon swallow the golden cloud. Surely whatever was inside the golden cloud would be thoroughly decayed by the venom. But while the thought flickered in his mind, the golden cloud released a drone as it flew out from the green chi. The man was greatly alarmed. He quickly began to spin and had green light envelop his body, transforming himself into a 10-meter-tall wall of flame that rushed to sweep the golden cloud. Suddenly, a dense emerald flame passed the cloud and silenced their buzzing. Soon after, crackles popped and countless golden specks began to fall from the flames. The remnants of the golden cloud instantly scattered, revealing individual golden beetles. They violently swayed within the green flames and were barely able to struggle. When the man saw this, he felt relieved, but something soon came to mind as he looked at the remaining beetles. He suddenly cried out in terror, "Those are gold-devouring beetles. How can there be so many?" In his shock, the green light covering him faded to reveal his odd appearance. He had two beady yellow eyes and a head full of disheveled green hair. His mouth stretched to the edges of both cheeks. He shouted in surprise as the falling gold-devouring beetles seemed to regain life. They flew back up, buzzing, and the green flame dragon wrapping around the other beetles was rapidly shrinking. The man's complexion became increasingly unsightly. But at that moment, red light flashed from above the gold-devouring beetles. The serpent woman suddenly appeared with an open mouth, spitting an azure mist down below, soon taking the form of an azure alms bowl. The bowl surged several times in size and released many azure threads, turning into a huge light barrier that wrapped around the many gold-devouring beetles down below. The gold-devouring beetles attempted to attack the light barrier with all their might, but it had no effect. They were completely trapped. At this moment, the serpent woman turned to the man and coldly said, "What are you scared of? Do you believe those beetles to be fully mature? So long as they aren't complete, they are capable of being killed." As if to verify her words, the woman flicked her finger down, producing a frigid, tearing noise. A fingernail-sized streak flickered down towards the azure light barrier and swept past one of the beetles. As a result, the gold-devouring beetle was silently cleaved into two. The red streak then halted to reveal itself to be an inch-long red serpent scale with incredibly sharp edges. After this, relief was visible on his face, and the woman wore a sinister smile. She then grasped her hand in an incantation gesture, and successive cracks sounded out as over 100 identical serpent scales show out from her body. The serpent woman decided to leave the six-winged frost centipedes to her fire serpents for the time being, and decided to exterminate the captured gold-devouring beetles. But at that moment, an icy snort sounded out from the blue mist below, followed by booming thunder. Then, silver light flashed 60 meters away from the serpent woman. Vigilant, the serpent woman formed an incantation gesture, and immediately made use of a demon art, commanding her flame serpents to charge direction and tear towards the silhouette that appeared before her. The silhouette chuckled and flipped his hand, producing a small sparkling silver shield in front of him. Then, a mirror-like wall suddenly came into existence. The dense barrage of red streaks struck the silver wall and erupted in blinding silver light. The red streaks were repelled in different directions, none of them leaving any mark behind in the wall. When the serpent woman saw this, her heart jumped. A fierce expression appeared on the face of the man next to her. He swept his sleeve, releasing a stream of roiling toxic mist. If one were observing the mist carefully, they would discover unremarkable green threads flickering within them. These were poisonous needles that he bitterly cultivated over several thousand years, from condensing his most lethal venom. Even late nascent soul cultivators would quickly dissolve to poisonous refuse if they didn't dissolve the venom in time. And Lee simply waved his sleeve to face the attack and released a small red cauldron. In a flash, it disappeared outside the silver wall and let out a clear ring. As it surged in size, the lid of the cauldron opened of its own accord and released countless crimson fireballs. Each of the fireballs were only fist-sized, but they soon joined together to form hundreds of crimson crows. With shrill cries, they charged to meet the oncoming poison mist. Upon contact with the birds, the mist along with its poison needles were extinguished, wiped away into gray smoke. The mist stood no match. The Scarlet Cauldron was the sentient cauldron Han Li acquired from Kunwu Mountain. It controlled over 1,000 great yang birds, an ideal weapon against wicked and evil arts. Its might was made obvious as soon as it appeared. A glint flashed from Han Li's eyes, and he felt satisfied by what he saw. He shook his sleeve, and a tricolored fan slipped into his grasp. While the murder of flame crows merged into a flame sea, the thunderstorm wings on Han Li's back flickered, followed by his disappearance in a silver flash. When the metamorphosed demon saw his toxic mist broken, he was furious, but alarm froze his heart upon seeing Han Li vanish from sight. He hastily released his spiritual sense and grasped his hands in a spell seal, then releasing a green net from his body, weaving a spider web that surrounded him 40 meters around him. Lightning clapped, and Han Li appeared 10 meters behind the man. The green net shook and collapsed upon Han Li instantly. Han Li was prepared. A net of golden lightning emerged from his body to counter the attack. Upon contact, the green net evaporated, much to the demon's horror. Light instantly flickered from his body as he made his escape. At that same moment, a tricolored flame was released. The demon covered his body in radiant light, intending on stalling the flame temporarily as he made his escape. But against his expectations, a muffled bang sounded and tricolored light erupted. A blinding halo of light swelled and withdrew, enveloping the demon inside of him. Horrid screams followed, only for the demon to burn to ash. The Triflame fan was something even the silver-winged night fiend didn't dare to combat. How could a trifling grade 8 demon beast hope to block it? This scene left a chill down the serpent woman's spine. Although her abilities were somewhat stronger than the man, since Han Li was able to exterminate her companion with quick ease, she knew it wouldn't take him much effort to deal with her either. Without another thought, red light brightly shined from her body, and she burst into countless scarlet serpents, each scattering in different directions. Momentarily surprised, a cold smile soon raised from Han Li's lips and spiritual power rushed from his eyes. The depths of his eyes shined with a blinding blue light, and his eyes focused on one flame serpent in particular. With a flap of his wings, he vanished, leaving only thunder in his wake. A chain of silver flashes and thunder sounded as Han Li teleported several times more, arriving above one of the flame serpents, and he looked down at it with an icy gaze. When the scarlet flame serpent noticed that Han Li was above it, it blinked in fright and opened its mouth without another thought. It spat out a thumb-sized ball from its mouth directly at Han Li. It was its fire attribute demon core that it cultivated for countless years. Han Li pursed his lips in a smile and reached for the pearl with a single hand. A crackle sounded, and a purple flame shot out from his hand, creating a giant hand that grabbed the pearl. Successive explosions as red light and purple flames erupted as the hand seized it, but silence soon followed. The fire serpent beneath trembled, and the raging flames on its body dimmed. Terrified, the serpent attempted to flee with all its might, but killing intent glinted from Han Li's eyes. He held his hands in an incantation gesture, and the large hand of flame surged several times in size before reaching out to capture the snake. Before the serpent could launch itself, it felt a chill envelop its entire body. Then, its body was completely restrained. Its heart sank, and it discovered that threads of icy purple chi had restrained its body before the hand even touched it. Of course, the icy chi didn't restrain it completely, as it was demon beast at the peak of grade 8 stage, but it managed to delay it long enough for the purple hand to capture it. Helpless, the demon used the last of its strength to spit out a fireball created from impure blood essence, slowing down the purple hand for only a moment before it was captured. A layer of purple ice slowly spread across it, extinguishing the last of the scarlet flames burning on the serpent's body and sealing the serpent in ice. Underneath the sunlight, it twinkled a beautiful purple. The large purple hand then disappeared in a moment. Han Li shook his sleeve, and a dozen golden streaks released from his sleeve, coiling around the serpent several times. As golden light twinkled, the ice along with the serpent was divided into tens of pieces, followed by a streak of golden light escaping. Han Li was already prepared for this. With the casting of a sword art, the dozen flying swords circling in the air released several arcs of golden lightning, trapping the green light in a net. The net contracted and firmly imprisoned it in a golden sphere. He raised his hand to produce a black jade bottle and had it absorb the golden sphere before finally putting it away. In the blue mist in the ice crevice, silver light flickered as Bai Yai flew out and witnessed what had happened with a trace of alarm. She had only hidden in the mist for a short time, but when she emerged, Han Li already easily slain the two higher-form demon beasts. The two demon beasts were incredibly powerful. Although they were only grade 8, each of them was no less powerful than a mid-nascent soul cultivator, forcing her to flee as they pursued her like prey. Despite already knowing Han Li was a vastly powerful cultivator, she was deeply shaken at how easily Han Li had killed the two demons. As Bai Yai stared in shock, Han Li commanded the six-winged frost centipedes and the gold-devouring beetles to return to their storage pouches, and they obediently floated back to him. "Fellow Taoist Bai, you seem to be heavily poisoned." Han Li glanced at her and frowned. Having regained her bearings, she sweetly said, "I didn't expect the demon's venom mist to be potent enough to erode my barriers. Fortunately, I had taken the 100 grass pill. With a half-day of meditation, I should be able to expel the poison." Han Li smiled and said, "I had only recently finished concocting my pill. Had fellow Taoist came a moment earlier, it would be hard to say if I would emerge to attack them." "In that case, I've been quite lucky," Bai Yai smiled. Han Li looked around and curiously asked, "Fairy Bai, how did you encounter those two metamorphosized demon beasts? Didn't you say that high-grade demons wouldn't appear near North Night Island?" Bai Yai suddenly recalled something and her expression changed. "It's a long story. This isn't a good place to stay. I'll tell you about it on our way back." "What, are there other demons? How many?" Han Li narrowed his eyes and a glint flickered from them. Bai Yai wryly smiled. "If only it was a matter of numbers. I fear that our North Night Palace has encountered a great problem." When Han Li heard this, his heart trembled. He maintained a calm exterior and nodded. "In that case, we'll head back and make the report. Nevertheless, you are severely poisoned. Are you still able to move? How about I lend you a hand?" "That would be appreciated. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Han," Bai Yai said with a smile. Soon after, the two flew in the blue mist, followed by silence. 4 hours later, an azure and silver streak flew out from the ice ravine and disappeared past the horizon in the blink of an eye. Half a day later, a pitch-black cloud rolled across the sky and completely enveloped the ice ravine. A furious hiss sounded from the cloud, and it roiled with lightning jumping within it. Gray winds then swept past the cloud before it vanished. Several days later, Han Li and Bai Yai returned to North Night Palace and arrived before Master Arctic Dragon to give their report. They were in the same hall where Han Li last met Arctic Dragon. Arctic Dragon's face turned sullen and he tightly frowned. Junior Marshal Sister Bai, are you sure this is true? Bai Yai's face tensed and she said, there was no mistake. I saw one of the myriad Demon Valley's deputy lords, the Azurback Wolf. There were also 2 grade 8 demon beasts that pursued me, neither of them having originated from the Ice Sea. Arctic Dragon gave Han Li a warm face and said, then that means they have joined hands. They will soon take action. Brother Han, many thanks for assisting Junior Marshal Sister Bai. You must be tired. How about taking a rest at our most distinguished guest residences? Han Li indifferently stood up and turned around, displaying no intention of staying behind. 2 days ago, the 2 vagrant cultivators I introduced to you had arrived. I'm sure you'll be close friends with them, Arctic Dragon added. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist. Han Li calmly nodded and disappeared in a streak of light. When all trace of Han Li left the hall, Arctic Dragon turned to Bai Yai and seriously said, Junior Marshal Sister, send message to all of the elders remaining in the palace to come here. We will need to have a meeting in detail. Send word to double the guards as well. Yes, Grand Elder. Bai Yai nodded and she flipped her hand, producing a sound transmission talisman. Letter 1D627, letter 1D633, letter 1D626, letter 212F, letter 1D4CC, letter 1D626. Letter 1D4B8, letter 1D630, letter 1D4C2. Sitting back on the second floor of his temporary residence, Han Li recalled what Bai Yai told him. While Han Li was refining his medicine pills, Bai Yai was patrolling an area and discovered a meeting of high-grade metamorphosed demons. There were demon beasts both from the mainland and from the Ice Sea, headed by the Azurback Wolf and the 2-headed Dark Flood Dragon. She hadn't heard any concrete details before they discovered her and was forced to flee. Perhaps feeling that the 2 demons would be enough, the other demons hadn't pursued her. Then for a time, a battle erupted between her and the 2 demon beasts. However, she was poisoned during a moment of carelessness and was forced to flee towards Han Li. In the end, Han Li dispatched the 2 demons with ease. His expression was calm as he mulled over the matter, but his thoughts were tumultuous. Contrary to Han Li's expectations, there were hardly any changes in North Night Palace apart from a few extra guards. In addition, he spotted no trace of Bai Yai. It seemed she was occupied, but it wasn't any concern for Han Li. In his current state, there was hardly anything that could pose a danger to his life apart from a few extremely dangerous areas or the full-powered pursuit of a deity transformation stage cultivator. As a result, he decided to stay in the sect for the time being, despite having a policy of avoiding trouble where he could. Of course, he had also agreed to assist Master Arctic Dragon in breaking his bottleneck to deity transformation stage, and most importantly was the secret technique to break through bottlenecks that Arctic Dragon gave him. He only had his portion of the technique. If he wanted a complete understanding of the technique, he would have to personally involve himself in the process. When Han Li discovered this, he felt a bit gloomy. Additionally, he wasn't willing to leave until he acquired information on the Purison Flame Essence. 1. Mentioned in Chapter 948, an ingredient in creating a legendary medicine by the name of the Returning Sun Water. As such, he made another trip to the Hidden Scriptures Hall and used up his 2 remaining days to find any information on the Purison Flame Essence, but he ended up without any results. Han Li wasn't surprised by this. Rather, it would have been surprising if he found it easily. Following that, Han Li spent his time in his temporary residence meditating, taking not a step outside as if the building were his own cave residence. A month passed in the blink of an eye in complete peace, but it was clear to see that this was the calm before the oncoming storm. One day, Han Li found his cultivation interrupted by a visitor, a woman who had a similar appearance to Bai Yai. She was at the peak of mid-nascent soul stage, a step higher than Bai Yai. Are you Fairy Bai's elder cousin? With hands held behind his back, he examined the woman with a trace of surprise. That's right, I am Bai Mingxin, one of the inner palace elder, and one of the sect cultivators who nurtures a flame of extreme cold. Ah, I've heard from fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon that there were 2 others who cultivate ice flames in the sect, so you were one of them. May I ask why you've informed me of this? As Han Li spoke, a twinkle lit from his eyes. Although the woman appeared beautiful, her flawless face appeared frigid. It seemed to have something to do with her cultivation art. Nothing much. I've only heard that Brother Han's abilities are quite amazing, rivaling even late-stage grand cultivators. Furthermore, your purple apex flames are exceedingly profound. I wish to compare them with my own ice phoenix flames. How about it? The woman then extended her finger and lit up a white flame from it. The flame was like a wisp of smoke. It spiraled in the air and didn't appear to contain much strength. But as one who cultivated an icy flame himself, Han Li had a deep sense of foreboding towards the white flame, and his face grew heavy. Han Li glanced at his surroundings and smiled. "Very well, I've long heard of your palace's 3 great ice flames. Let's test it, but how do you intend on comparing them?" "I only intend on comparing the power of the flames. I don't wish to truly fight you." Bai Mingxin wryly smiled and exhaled a breath of icy qi towards her fingertip. The white flames increased several times in size upon contact and coiled in the air, turning into a small white flood dragon before charging towards Han Li. Han Li frowned and swept his sleeves around him, producing several differing spell formations that disappeared into his surroundings. He then opened his mouth and spat out a small ball of purple flames, turning into a small purple bird, and met the incoming flame dragon. Han Li and Bai Mingxin attentively watched as white and purple flames collided. Deep thunder rang as the flames weaved together. In the blink of an eye, the purple flames engulfed the white flames and soon extinguished it entirely. The remaining light belonged to the purple firebird that circled in the air. Bai Mingxin's expression stirred upon seeing this. Han Li calmly waved his hand, having the purple bird return to him in the form of a fireball, then disappearing into his sleeve. Without further hesitation, Bai Mingxin said, "Your purple apex flames are quite extraordinary. I am relieved. Please follow me. The 2 external holders of the icy flames have arrived at our palace. I'll lead you to the Grand Elder's residence where they are both waiting." So it was like that. It seems Fairy Bai wasn't too sure of me and had me take her test. Han Li gave her a doubtful smile. Bai Mingxin silently nodded, and soon held her hands in an incantation gesture, before flying out of the building window in a white streak. When Han Li saw this, he stroked his nose with a helpless appearance. His heart had jumped when the woman entered through the window as well. But since she already left, Han Li could only follow after her and flew out from the building window. After the time it took to finish a meal, the 2 arrived in Master Arctic Dragon's main hall. In addition to the huge cauldron burning with celestial ice flames at the center of the hall, 4 cultivators were sitting on woven mats nearby. Arctic Dragon was sitting next to an azure-robed middle-aged man. An old white-haired woman and a gray-robed monk were sitting farther away from them. When Han Li and Bai Mingxin entered the hall, the 4 immediately turned their gaze towards them. Han Li sensed the old lady, and monk swept their gaze past Bai Mingxin and focused on him. In that case, Han Li didn't hold back and used his spiritual sense to observe the other 2 as well. The old woman possessed about the same level of cultivation as Han Li, but the monk was higher at the peak of mid-nascent soul stage. Han Li slowly took a few steps forward and saluted the 4, quietly taking a seat at an empty mat that was a close distance away from the 4. Bai Mingxin took a seat at the side of Arctic Dragon. "Madame Long, Master Moju, this is fellow Taoist Han," Arctic Dragon said with a friendly face. "He is the 5th cultivator who cultivates a flame of extreme cold. With your assistance, I can put my 100 years of research into practice and attempt to break through the bottleneck to deity transformation stage." The excitement in his eyes was clear to see. The old woman expressionlessly glanced at Han Li and remained silent, perhaps a result of her strange temperament. The monk, on the other hand, looked at Han Li with a kind gaze and gave him a warm smile. The monk calmly asked, "I heard fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon mention that Brother Han didn't cultivate an ice-attributed cultivation technique, but you are still able to use flames of extreme cold. Is that true?" "It is something that I managed to accomplish through luck," Han Li replied. "I also heard that the flames are your original creation. It has been tens of thousands of years since the appearance of a new ice flame. Do you think you could let me see it?" the old woman aloofly asked. Han Li couldn't help but be startled by her young voice. Arctic Dragon then added, "Don't be alarmed. Madame Long is the Grand Elder of the Green Willow Sect. Her cultivation art is rather peculiar, causing her voice to be youthful." A peculiar feeling lingered in Han Li's mind upon hearing his explanation. He had seen many instances where women use techniques to preserve their appearance, but this was the first time he had heard of a technique to preserve the youth of one's voice. When she saw Han Li looked at her with an odd gaze, the old woman snorted, "What? Do you have any comments towards the techniques of my sect?" At Han Li's current cultivation, he didn't have anything to fear from a mid-nascent soul cultivator, but he also didn't wish to make any unnecessary enemies. As such, He chuckled and tactfully replied, "Not at all. I was only curious for a time. My flames had yet to be refined. How could I dare to compare them to yours?" The old woman didn't pursue the matter, and her eyes silently wandered. Then Bai Mengson sent a voice transmission to Arctic Dragon. Arctic Dragon broke into a smile upon hearing her and took a deep glance at Han Li. Then he lightly coughed and said, "Madam Long and Master Moju have been good friends of mine for many years. Fellow Taoist Han also has a deep relationship with one of the elders of my sect. As such, I've brought the three of you here to assist me. Although I reckon that this will only have a 30% chance of success, I have no choice but to take the risk." The monk said with a concerned tone, "Fellow Taoist Shi, you may be reaching the end of your lifespan, but we've discovered many high-grade demon beasts on our way here, and they've started to gather near North Night Island. Isn't it too dangerous to test your technique now?" Arctic Dragon confidently said, "Fellow Taoist Moju, don't worry. It would be best for me to successfully break through my bottleneck. Then I would have no fear of those demons. If that fails, the palace already arranged countermeasures. If I die, my sect will not follow me." "In that case I am relieved," the gray-robed monk smiled. The old woman nodded. "I have no objections. I've been wanting to see the true mystery behind this technique." Master Arctic Dragon appeared satisfied by their replies. Then when his gaze turned to Han Li calmly asked, "When will we start? I also have no objections. The sooner we start, the better." "Good, good. Since the three of you have no objections, please follow me. I've already made preparations." Arctic Dragon clapped his hands together and happily stood up. Han Li and company followed suit and stood up after Arctic Dragon. The old dwarf then took several steps forward and muttered an incantation before striking the cauldron with a blue spell seal. The huge cauldron let out a series of hums and glowed brightly with blue light. Then it quickly shrank to the size in the fist as it floated in midair. In the area beneath the cauldron, a black hole strangely appeared beneath it, revealing a stretch of crystalline stairs heading below. Arctic Dragon beckoned to the small cauldron and took it into his sleeve before leading the way down. Bai Mengson and the middle-aged man closely followed after him. The old woman and the monk exchanged a glance before trailing after them as well. And Li looked at the hole with narrowed eyes for a moment before heading down with a mysterious smile. Not long after, light began to shine within the dark passage. Everyone could clearly see the profound ice that formed the passage all around them. The light originated from egg-sized moonlight stones embedded in the walls, making for fairy-tale-like appearance. After climbing down for about 300 meters, they had reached the end of the stairs, and the passage began to even out. Although this was the first time the three outside cultivators entered this passage, they didn't appear particularly surprised by its appearance. Rather, they carried on with a rich familiarity. After the time it took to finish a meal, they finally walked out from the passage and into an underground hall. It was created from ordinary jade and appeared ancient in style. But when Han Li and company looked at the end of the hall, they found a huge white stone gate that reached over 100 meters tall. There were unknown ancient patterns, layers of talisman characters and spell formation on top of it, causing it to flicker in light. But what startled Han Li was the group of 7 cultivators standing in front of it. All of them possessed nascent soul cultivation, most of them at early stage. Bai Yai stood among them at the very front. Han Li blinked and unconsciously glanced at the others in his group. The 3 belonging to the sect appeared calm, but the monk and the old woman unconsciously frowned, surprise betrayed from their eyes. "Fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon these are?" the monk asked. Arctic Dragon turned around and smiled. "Please don't be alarmed. They are the palace elders. Their assistance will be required to enter the profound Jade Cave in Spirit Void Hall. The extremely cold chi in this hall is required to increase my odds of success." "Spirit Void Hall?" the monk asked in alarm. The old man's eyes lit up, even Han Li's face stirred. The azure-robed middle-aged man smiled and said, "What you saw outside was the 3 Spirit Void Halls. Although their names are all identical, they all have their own mysteries. The profound Jade Cave is one of them, and it is the true entrance to Spirit Void Hall. Furthermore, each of the 3 halls all lead to an underground passage." Han Li had already taken notice of this man. Although Master Arctic Dragon hadn't introduced him, he knew that the azure-robed man was the other North Night Palace elder that cultivated an ice flame. He had a common appearance, but his face appeared sullen as he observed the others. At that moment, Bai Yai and the others welcomed them. A gray-haired old man stepped forward from the crowd of elders and saluted Arctic Dragon. "Grand Elder, you've truly decided to open Spirit Void Hall. Isn't this breaking our laws? Although past generations have opened it, it was only on the verge of catastrophe. Furthermore, you even brought along foreign cultivators to enter the profound Jade Cave, something without any precedent." Han Li was stunned. A mid-nascent soul cultivator dared to be so rude to Arctic Dragon despite their vast difference in cultivation. Not only Han Li, but the old lady and monk also wore odd expressions. As if having already expected this, Arctic Dragon slowly said, "Elder Yi, think it over. Although Spirit Void Hall is something to only be opened during a crisis, past generations never mentioned that it couldn't be opened during a time of peace. Not to mention that many disciples have already reported information that groups of demons are gathering near the island. It is a suitable occasion to open the hall. Moreover, the 3 halls aren't being opened all at once. Are you telling me that my position as the Grand Elder isn't enough?" The gray-haired old man swept his gaze past Han Li and company and unyieldingly said, "Even so, Spirit Void Hall is a restricted area of our sect. I feel ill at ease with 3 outsiders entering it. As the palace's overseer elder, I disagree with this matter." When the 3 heard this, they couldn't help but inwardly frown. The old woman even snorted and wore a displeased expression. Arctic Dragon calmly replied, "With Junior Marshal Brother Yi's overseer treasure, you do have the ability to deny my decision. But if I can win over 2/3 of the sect elders, your objection will be overruled." Han Li raised his brow at the mention of the overseer treasure. Even Arctic Dragon seemed to hold it in some fear, much to Han Li's surprise. Could it be the overseer treasure was a divine spirit treasure or a replica? In that case, even a mid-nascent soul cultivator could fight against a late-nascent soul cultivator. Furthermore, the old man had ties to another faction of the palace that allowed him to contend against Arctic Dragon. The gray-haired old man's heart sank. He grimaced, but he still maintained his calm. "I was wondering why Junior Marshal Brother Jin and the others had been deployed to the outside. You've been planning this from the beginning. In that case, I won't be a bother. I hope you will truly be able to break through your bottleneck. I will go patrol up above and make sure no demons catch us unaware." The old man then took large strides to the passage above. Arctic Dragon didn't block him and simply glanced at him as he disappeared alone. "Junior Marshal Brothers, prepare to open the seal," the azure-robed middle-aged man commanded. The North Night Palace elders each took out identical jade pendants and sent them into the sky. Han Li was startled when he saw the jade pendant, but he maintained an indifferent face. The magic tool appeared exactly the same as the pendant that he returned to Arctic Dragon when his 10 days at the Hidden Scripture Pavilion were over. He glanced at the old dwarf, but he had yet to take out the pendant. Under the lead of the azure-robed middle-aged man, the elders began to utter incantations, and soon the pendants began to brightly shine, turning into pulsing balls of light. Under the control of the incantations, the light flew into the air and soon condensed into a rainbow-colored phantom. The phantom was a slender woman with a vague face, but her shining eyes were like stars against the night sky. As soon as the phantom appeared, the North Night Palace cultivators bowed to it with the utmost respect, Arctic Dragon included. When the 3 outsiders saw this, they realized that the woman was most likely the ancient cultivator who established the sect. Otherwise, they couldn't possibly be so respectful of the phantom. But the appearance of the phantom came as a shock to Han Li. He couldn't help but think she was somehow related to the Heaven Void Hall and the scattered star seas. He had no doubt they had something to do with one another. Besides, there was also the appearance of the celestial ice flames in both locations. It was a likely possibility. Just as Han Li thought this, the palace cultivators willed the woman to slowly floated towards the stone gate. The phantom touched the gate, only for her to rupture, scattering rainbow light that disappeared a moment later. Light and talisman characters on the huge stone gate soon disappeared and became dim and absent of chi. Then a violent tremor shook the ground, followed by the appearance of many jade pendants appearing at the top of the gate, only for them to lifelessly fall to the ground. The North Night Palace cultivators waved their arms to hastily beckon the jade pendant into their grasp. Arctic Dragon smiled when he saw this. He took several steps forward and brushed his sleeves towards the stone gate. A blue mist swept past them and an azure wind struck the gate, silently opening it with ease. Before the interior of the gate could be seen, Arctic Dragon withdrew from his original position and sternly shouted, "Everyone, be careful." Suddenly, a deafening rumble came from the interior, and countless beast howls roared. A gust of ice swept out, covering every surface it touched with a sparkling frost. Thunder seemed to sound from the icy chi itself. The weaker cultivators were knocked a meter back. Those stronger were able to hold their ground with either barriers of treasures. White icy winds filled the entire hall. A layer of purple flames lit up from Han Li's body, blocking the icy winds from approaching him. The winds seemed to melt away as soon as they touched him. At that same moment, Han Li glanced to the side. The entire hall was covered in ice, but the users of the ice flames were completely unharmed. Bai Mingxin protected herself with white flames, while Arctic Dragon emitted a cloud of celestial ice flames from the small cauldron in front of him. As for the middle-aged azure-robed man, a black flame enveloped his as he held his hands behind his back. The old woman produced a yellow walking cane at an unknown time, creating clouds of yellow flame in front of her. The gray-robed monk slapped his hands together, producing a green flame that coiled around his body, flickering as it blocked the icy winds. As for the other cultivators, they were able to block the icy winds, but their barriers and treasures flickered in their struggle against the winds. In the blink of an eye, the howling came to a sudden stop and winds gradually dispersed, filling the entire hall with silence. As Han Li's eyes wandered, he formed a hand incantation, and his purple flames were absorbed back into his body. He looked at the stone gate and found countless giant pillars of ice erected there almost like a maze. His heart stirred and he released his spiritual sense forward. Not long after, he felt his spiritual sense become sluggish and heavy, a sign that peculiar spirit restrictions laid within. The old woman and the others sensed the same, and their expressions changed. Arctic Dragon took a deep breath and turned to gravely look at the foreign cultivators. Fellow Taoists, be careful. This is also the first time that I've entered the Spirit Void Hall. Although most of the restrictions are under my control, there are a few that even I can't touch. Please follow me with the utmost care to avoid triggering any of the restrictions. The old woman indifferently replied, "Of course. Why would we recklessly rush through your palace's restricted area?" Han Li and the gray-robed monk raised no objections. Arctic Dragon nodded with satisfaction and announced to the North Night Palace elders, "The process of breaking the bottleneck will take a month at worst, less than a week at best. If those demons attack the palace during this time, respond in accordance to our original plans. If there are any unforeseen events and I've yet to emerge for 2 months, put our reserve plans into action." "Yes, Grand Elder," the group of cultivators replied with a solemn tone. "Then we shall be heading in." Arctic Dragon then turned around and summoned a fist-sized jade plate into his hand with a wave of his sleeve. He then raised the magic tool in his hand and led the way through the stone gate. Han Li and the other wielders of the ice flames closely followed after him. Once all of them entered, Arctic Dragon cast a spell seal with a single hand and struck the plate with a spell seal. Soon after, the stone gates closed with a rumble and talisman characters lit back up from it. When the old woman and the gray-robed monk saw this, they exchanged an odd glance. "Fellow Taoists, don't worry," Arctic Dragon explained. "Although the gates are difficult to open from the outside, it is easy from the interior. For the time being, I've shut it to prevent anyone from bothering us." The old woman and the monk found it difficult to speak against this. As for Han Li, he didn't seem to mind this at all. When the group walked 30 meters forward, they arrived in front of many ice pillars and were dazzled by the shiny sight. Arctic Dragon calmly warned, "These pillars of myriad-year profound ice have all gone through tempering by ancient cultivators to form the frigid sulfreeze formation. Those without the suitable magic tool would instantly freeze upon entering. The icy winds we encountered from the entrance was the icy chi that accumulated from the formation after being sealed for 1,000 years. Even wielders of glacial flames would find it difficult to survive the formation." When the old lady and the monk heard this, they glanced at the pillars of ice with traces of doubt. Han Li chuckled, "Fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon, don't worry. We aren't interested in testing the might of the formation." Arctic Dragon smiled when he heard this, and he began to wave the formation plate in his hand towards the endless mass of ice pillars in front of him. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot out from the plate and left white light from places it crossed. White light then lit up from the pillars of ice, creating the illusion of a passage. With white light continuing to shine from the formation plate, Arctic Dragon walked forward. Letter 1D6ATF, letter 1D5FF, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D4 1E, letter 1D430, letter 1D6AT. Letter 1D41C, letter 1D698, letter 1D55E. The party closely stuck close behind him. Han Li walked at the group's rear, looking around him curiously. The pillars of profound ice were remarkable thick, appearing as if two people could hug around them, and had a sleep surface. Upon closer inspection, dim talisman characters were roaming across the surface of the pillars. When he threw to examine them closer, the talisman characters suddenly disappeared. It was truly mysterious. When he raised his head, he noticed a dense icy mist about 200 meters above them. They obscured the top half of the ice pillars from view. But it was obvious these ice pillars contained a fearsome amount of cold energy. Even a distance of 10 meters away, one could sense the treads of glacial chi they emitted. Although they couldn't compare to flames of extreme cold, they were beyond what ordinary cold chi was capable of. It was no wonder why Arctic Dragon was so confident. As Han Li pondered, the party ventured for about a kilometer. Throughout their journey, the pillars of ice lined up densely to either side. Despite the party's calm appearance, this came as a shock to them. After walking for the time it would take to finish a cup of tea, light had finally opened around them and they walked out from the pillars of ice. There was a raised altar in front of them. It was 60 meters tall and over 300 meters tall. It was made from of white jade and was covered in blue light. Faint golden doors could be seen from its side, each over 20 meters tall with ancient talismans embedded on each side. They appeared to be a sealed passage of some sort. When Arctic Dragon saw this, he wore an expression of joy and he put away the formation plate in his hand. He took large strides towards the altar and raised his hands. With blue sparks, a layer of celestial ice flames wrapped around them, then pressing his hands against the altar. The flames and the altar's light barrier fused, causing the barrier to slightly tremble. It burst with blinding light as the barrier became translucent. Followed by a strange bang, it turned to crystal and cracked from where Arctic Dragon infused the flames, then vanishing in nearly an instant. Arctic Dragon's figure suddenly blurred, and he stood on top of the altar. Han Li and company turned to streaks of light and arrived at Arctic Dragon's side. At that moment, Arctic Dragon held his hands behind his back and looked down at the ground in front of him. Han Li followed his gaze, soon discovering there was a strange spell formation located at the center of the altar. Furthermore, there was also a huge pattern at the center that looked the same as the Heaven Void Cauldron. For just a moment, Han Li's face betrayed a change of expression. Arctic Dragons unintentionally brushed past Han Li. Although his face was now ordinarily calm, Arctic Dragon still focused his gaze on him and asked, "Fellow Taoist Han, have you seen a spell formation of this kind before?" Han Li's heart jumped and he slowly replied, "Yes, I had seen something like this in an ancient cave residence, but upon closer inspection, I see that it is truly different. It was only a lapse in judgment." "Is that so?" Arctic Dragon wore a mysterious smile. It may have been a display of doubt, but he didn't pursue the matter. Instead, he swept his sleeve, releasing a small cauldron that lit up with celestial ice flames. It spun through the air until it arrived above the spell formation. Han Li pursed his lips and unconsciously gasped. The other's attention was fully captured by what was happening. With one of his hands forming a gesture, he flicked his other hand towards the small cauldron. A muffled bang sounded out as the small cauldron grew larger. Blue flames violently lit up from the cauldron, instantly covering every inch of its surface, restoring the cauldron to its original size. At that moment, Bai Mengson and the azure-robed middle-aged man both took a step forward and raised their hand, producing a white and black flame that struck two sides of the formation. Suddenly, a huge rumble shook the ground and the spell formation lit up, activated by the two flames. The huge cauldron pattern at the center shined dazzlingly. Lightly slowly emerged from it to take the form of a cauldron of blue light. The original cauldron had stayed floating above the formation this entire time. When the phantom cauldron fully emerged, Arctic Dragon controlled it to immediately drop down. Blue light wildly flashed as they began to fuse together. As a huge explosion boomed, the cauldron. Arctic Dragon suddenly muttered a strange incantation, and the celestial ice flames spurt forth from the cauldron like a volcano, enveloping the entire spell formation. When the formation and the flames made contact, blindingly light flashed, and the entire altar began to violently shake. With the cauldron at the center, cracks began to appear on the ground, gradually widening and expanding as time went on. While Han Li and company floated in the air, they looked down with awe. The huge cauldron was now suspended in the air at its original location. White beams of light faintly shined from underneath the cracks around it. As Arctic Dragon stared at the crack in the altar, he wore a grave expression. Within lies the greatest hidden chamber of the Spirit Void Hall, the profound Jade Cave. Although it isn't very large, the cave's profound jade was something that has existed since ancient times. The ancient cultivators used enormous amounts of magic power to shape a vein of profound jade into that cave. Although profound jade and profound ice sound similar, there are clear differences, as you all should well know. And if you leave this hall, you'll find hardly any myriad-year profound jade, even if you search the entire hall. The azure-robed middle-aged man, Elder Aoyang, and Bai Mengxin glanced with a trace of interest. The gray-robed monk stared at the cracks in the altar and excitedly said, "Of course, had you not mentioned the profound jade cave before, we could have hardly believed that your sect was concealing something so valuable. Myriad-year profound jade is rarely ever found in this. A fist-sized chunk as it is all that is needed for a magic treasure to possess ice-attributed abilities, allowing it to use astonishing glacial chi to form attacks. It is beyond comparison to profound ice." The old woman glanced at the altar with a bright gaze. As for Han Li, he silently smiled, stroking the smooth surface of a small golden sword he kept hidden in his sleeve. Arctic Dragon then changed his focus to Han Li and the other two external cultivators and said, "I've already spoken about this before with Junior Marshal Brother Aoyang and Junior Marshal Sister Bai, but you will be rewarded with a piece of myriad-year, profound jade as a token of your gratitude, regardless of whether or not we succeed." Truly, even the bold and detached woman was unable to conceal her joy upon hearing him. Arctic Dragon nodded. "It is something within my authority as the Grand Elder of the North Night Peerless." Joy appeared on the face of the monk as well. Myriad-year profound jade was an extremely rare material that was found at no market and had no price. If one could find it, they would ordinarily infuse it with their magic power, immediately increasing its power by an entire fifth. Even Han Li couldn't help but be moved by his generosity. With such a heavy reward, the three would find it shameful if they didn't do their utmost when the time came. "Enough with that, let's enter the profound Jade Cave," Arctic Dragon continued. "The glacial chi within is extremely potent. Have your flames ready when you enter or you will be hard-pressed to defend yourselves. Fortunately, the cave has an area that can block the corrosion of the profound Jade's glacial chi. We'll be using that place to restore our magic power, else we won't be able to stay inside for long." Soon after, the dwarf opened his mouth and spat out a bright blue fireball. It turned into a large firebird above his head, only to circle him once before diving at the dwarf's body. A bird's cry sounded before the image of the large bird disappeared. A layer of blue flames then erupted and enveloped him. With his hands grasped in an incantation gesture, he began to float down into the crack. Bai Mengxin and the others released their own glacial flames and flew into the crack as well. Han Li glanced at the two golden gates the side, and to the cauldron floating above the crack. After some hesitation, something came to mind and he silently smiled, wrapping himself in a layer of purple apex flames and following them below. As soon as he entered, white glacial light brushed past him, producing an odd crackle as it brushed past the purple flames protecting him. They seemed to be at odds with one another, causing the flames to flicker. Han Li trembled. Without any further thought, he clapped his hands together, summoning even more flames to protect him and solidify his defenses. Now he had the leisure to examine his surroundings. The profound Jade Cave was an underground cavern. As the cave was created from a vein of myriad-year profound jade, countless pieces of variously sized grains laid in the wall all around them. The extremely rare material was several times more potent than profound ice, well displayed by the glacial light that dropped down from it, condensing into a mist at the bottom. When Han Li dropped down, the light struck at his purple likes like the patter of dense rain. In his alarm, he faintly felt that something was amiss. Seeing that the rest of the party wasn't paying attention to him, he reached out to the glacial light out of instant and forcibly used his magic power to grasp a sliver of it into his hand and concentrating his purple flames around it. Any ordinary glacial chi wouldn't have shown any peculiarities, but when Han Li looked at it with his bright-side spirit eyes, he frowned, soon to betray astonishment on his face. Under the bright-side spirit eyes, Han Li was able to see traces of its true form. As the purple flames continuously warped around the glacial light, their mutually powerful cold seemed to oppose one another. "What is this? This glacial chi seems almost intelligent," Han Li muttered with amazement. The glacial chi was attacking only of its own accord. If anyone were to control a large amount and concentrate it into an attack, He feared even his purple apex flames wouldn't be able to block it. As the thoughts quickly churned in his head, he was suddenly reminded of something and quickly formed an incantation gesture, summoning a scarlet wisp from the purple flames in his hand. When this flame wisp made contact with the white glacial light, it was instantly absorbed. An odd expression appeared on his face, while delight surged through his mind. The great Yin True Flame was known to Silvermoon as one of the 3 true spirit flames. It was well deserving of its name. Despite being only a single wisp, its power far exceeded that of the purple apex flames. When he initially refined the wisp of great Yin True Flame, he was only able to temporarily merge it with a bit of his purple apex flames. If he truly wished to fully convert the purple apex flames into the great Yin True Flame, it would take far beyond the time of a dozen years. Were this not the case, he would have already done so. After all, the great Yin True Flame already possessed a trace of intelligence. It was a higher existence compared to other kinds of glacial flames. When Han Li saw that the thread of True Flame was able to restrain the cave's glacial light, Han Li also felt a bit of relief. Just as these thoughts appeared in his mind, he suddenly held his hands behind his back and flicked his finger, vanishing the scarlet flame from sight. Letter 1D627, letter 1D4C7, letter 1D452, letter 1D452, letter 1D464, letter 212F. Letter 1D624, letter 2134, letter 1D62E. In the instant, Han Li was performing his experiment. Elder Aoyang seemed to sense something and looked upward at Han Li with a trace of surprise. Han Li's heart sank, but his expression remained calm. He nonchalantly asked, "Fellow Taoist, is there anything wrong?" The elder Aoyang examined Han Li and the cave walls to either side of him, discovering nothing out of the ordinary. He knew well that Han Li's abilities were exceptional, and thus gave a prompt and polite answer. "It's nothing. I was just wondering why you weren't following us. The large restrictions to spiritual sense inside Spirit Void Hall make me rather uncomfortable." Han Li looked down to see the glacial light brushing past his flames and replied, "He, the glacial qi in this cave is rather odd." Yes, the glacial qi is by no means ordinary. The cave is something that has existed since ancient times. After existing for such a long time, the glacial qi may have undergone a subtle change. Elder Aoyang's black flames were also under attack by the glacial qi and heard the same sounds of rain as Han Li. Han Li smiled and threw to say something when he suddenly let out a yelp. Elder Aoyang suddenly looked below and saw that the rest of the party already entered the depths of the cave. There was a hill of scattered rocks that spanned a kilometer wide. The glacial light lingering there was several times more concentrated than at the top. At the edge of the hill was a fire-red stone room with several entrances opened around it, appearing to almost be a cave formation. At the peak of the stone hill, there was a giant boulder with condensed glacial qi surrounding it. It was 10 meters wide, and its surface roiled with icy gusts and sparkling light. As he closely examined it, he discovered that the huge boulder's surface had a thumb-sized piece of profound jade. It sparkled with light, clearly displaying that it was many times purer than the shards he found at the cave's entrance. Suppressing his astonishment, Han Li followed the others and landed on the ground. Arctic Dragon's gaze was captured by the boulder as soon as he saw it, and joy appeared on his face. "Haha, that's great. I originally worried about how I would gather the glacial qi in the cave. I didn't expect that there would be a natural point where it concentrated. This will save us much effort." Arctic Dragon bellowed, and soon after, he raised his hand, producing a blue ice spike in his hand, striking the ball of white light. Clang, a metallic ring sounded upon impact, followed by the ice spike shattering to dust. "Not bad, not bad." Arctic Dragon only seemed to grow happier. "Ah yes, did you all see that stone room over there? It is formed from pure sun essence stone. It is the only area that is absent of glacial qi. We can rest there first as I explain what actions are forbidden in the cave. Otherwise, you will attract deep trouble for yourself." When the old woman heard him, she tapped her cane on the ground and asked, "Deep trouble? What does fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon mean?" "It's quite simple," Elder Aoyang said with a wry smile. "Apart from the glacial qi, there are other things in the profound jade cave you must take note of. The pieces of myriad-year profound jade may seem easy to extract, but in truth, every shard in the original vein is fused together using a grand ancient ability. In addition, the cave was further tempered through countless years of exposure to the glacial qi. Even with particularly vicious treasures, they wouldn't be able to do much harm. Why else would I leave such a large amount of profound jade here, if we are able to completely? This profound jade can't be acquired." The old woman frowned in disbelief. Master Arctic Dragon smiled and said, "If Madame Long have her doubts, please give it a try. You'll find out for yourself." "Is it really true? I'll have to give it a shot." The old woman's hair trembled and she raised her cane, pointing at a bean-sized piece of profound jade at the rocks in front of her. A strand of yellow light was released from the top of the cane and struck the jade. A muffled bang sounded, followed by a flash of light from the jade piece and little else. The old woman's expression faintly changed, and her expression soon sank as hostile intent was made clear on her face. She flicked her sleeve, summoning a simple azure hammer into her hand. She raised her hand in a blur, and the hammer disappeared in a flicker. A huge explosion sounded, followed by a flash of azure lightning against the jade. When the light faded, a cloud of white smoke was left behind. The woman was dumbstruck by what she saw. Arctic Dragon chuckled. "Fellow Taoist Long doesn't need to be so startled. Even if you used more powerful treasures, you would only be able to destroy the piece of jade. You wouldn't be able to extract it in its entirety." The woman's face grew unsightly, but she remained silent. The gray-robed monk standing to the side then said, "Fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon, in that case, your sect can't have much profound jade. I'm somewhat puzzled by the generous reward you had offered us." Arctic Dragon momentary paused before breaking out into laughter. "Haha, you are quite observant, Master Moju. Although my sect isn't able to excavate the profound jade from this cave, our sect does have a method to mine some of it. Junior Marshal Sister Bai, can you take out a few pieces for him to see?" Bai Mingxin nodded and slapped her storage pouch, producing a small white bottle into her hand. As the others closely watched, Bai Mingxin walked several steps towards a pile of rocks in front of her and nimbly opened the bottle, using her magic power to push out a drop of jet-black liquid. As the drop flew to one of the pieces of profound jade, it left a trail of gray qi in its midst. When Han Li saw the liquid, his calm face changed expression for just a moment, but his eyes couldn't conceal his astonishment. Fortunately for him, the others were entirely focused on the scene before them. When the liquid made contact with the profound jade, it disappeared from sight. In the blink of an eye, a layer of gray qi covered the profound jade, followed by a strange crack. The jade piece fell off and was picked up by Bai Mingxin. The old woman, the monk, and Han Li all wore expressions of shock. Arctic Dragon chuckled and explained, "This is a treasure that the palace founder had passed down. Every 10 years, naturally occurring yin qi condenses into a single drop of yin water, and it is only with this water that we are able to extract the jade from the cave intact. As such, we are only able to extract a small amount of profound jade every 1,000 years we open the cave." "So it was like that," the monk exclaimed. The old woman looked at the myriad-year profound jade that was embedded in the cave all around her. A trace of resignation could be seen from her face. On the other hand, Han Li's heart was deeply shaken by what he saw. "As for everything else, let's talk about it inside the Great Yang Room." Arctic Dragon then walked towards the red stone room. The rest of the party followed suit after him. When they drew closer to the room, they discovered that the stone was translucent and shined with red light. It emitted a broiling heat as if it were formed from fire spirit stones. Han Li's mind stirred. Great Yang Essence Stone. I've never heard of this material before, but it sounded awfully close to Great Yang Flame Essence. Could the two have something in common? No matter how it was said, this was the first time he found a trace of the Great Yang Flame Essence. He had to indirectly bring up the topic and see if the North Night Palace cultivators knew anything. When they entered the room, there was nothing there, but it was absent of devastating glacial qi found on the outside. With newgrown shelter, the cultivators relaxed, withdrew their glacial flames, and took a seat on the ground. As soon as Han Li took a seat, the monk glanced at the side, smiled. "I didn't expect that in addition to the myriad-year profound jade, there was also something as previous as Great Yang Essence Stone. To the best of my knowledge, this material is found in the depths of molten rocks. Additionally, it had to be refined specifically by Great Yang Flame Essence. How did your palace manage to find this much stone?" Arctic Dragon dryly laughed. "I didn't expect Master Moju to be so knowledgeable. However, we also have no idea how the palace's earlier generations managed to acquire it. The following generations of the palace had only benefited from it. Now then, let's talk about the other taboos in the profound jade cave. After that, I'll speak about the process to break my bottleneck in detail." The monk smiled in response and said nothing else. When Han Li heard that the Great Yang Flame Essence mentioned, his interest was lit up, but his mood soon fell. He could only turn his attention to what Arctic Dragon was about to say. Up above in a huge North Night Palace building, there was a gorgeous middle-aged woman sitting gracefully in a wooden chair. There was a man and a woman sitting across from her, Bai Yai and a gray-haired old man, the overseer elder. They were both looking at the woman with a stern expression. "You mean the Grand Elder opened Spirit Void Hall and brought 3 outsiders with him?" The middle-aged woman calmly asked. Her voice was somewhat hoarse, but it had an allure that made it difficult to forget. Bai Yai slowly replied, "My lady, it is true. However, he had already made arrangements in case of a contingency." The old man snorted and resentfully said, "What contingency plans? Why not do it as we always did? If they are too powerful and the grand formation isn't enough to deal with them, we just hide away our elite disciples in Spirit Void Hall and have them conceal themselves in a dimensional pocket. As one of the Spirit Void Halls is occupied, we will only be able to save less than a third of our disciples." "Don't say that." The woman raised her brow and solemnly said, "If Senior Martial Brother Arctic Dragon succeeds, we will have nothing to worry about the demon invasion. But just in case, Junior Martial Brother, ye should follow the plans the Grand Elder left behind. I also heard that Grade 8 demon beasts have appeared on the island, and that the patrolling disciples on the border have been killed." "That's right," the old man said with a serious expression. "Metamorphosed demon beasts have appeared. It seems they intend on wiping away our outskirts before invading the palace. This is mostly in line with their previous invasions, but there is one point that is different." "Oh, Junior Martial Brother Yi, please explain." A bright glint lit up from the woman's eyes. With some hesitation, the old man feebly said, "According to my information, not only is the Ice Sea's Ice Phoenix moving, but Myriad Demon Valley's old Azurback Wolf has moved too. It seems old Demon Chi will also act as well." "Old Demon Chi? Impossible." The woman's calm expression turned grave in an instant. "Senior Martial Sister Liu, I also find it impossible," the old man sighed. "However, there are several reports from our spies that signs of the old demon taking action." Bai Yai shook her head and doubtingly said, "Old Demon Chi is a demon that existed since ancient times. It is unknown how long he has entered deity transformation stage. If he truly wished to attack us, why would he wait until now?" "That may be true, but perhaps this may have something to do with the events surrounding Kunwu Mountain." The old man looked at Bai Yai and said, "I heard that not only did an elder devil ancestor appear, but even a demon from the spirit realm. These were only rumors spread from the grand sects. Who knows if they are true?" Bai Yai tensely frowned in thought. "Although I took part in the matter, I had to retreat early due to my injuries. Brother Han, however, should have stayed until the very end. He should know more about this." "The man you invited to the sect?" the middle-aged woman brightly asked. "The one and the same," Bai Yai nodded. In the blink of an eye, the woman regained her calm and indifferently said, "But regardless of what happened, it doesn't change anything about the demon invasion. It should be impossible for old Devil Chi to leave the valley, so it should most likely be his incarnation taking part." Bai Yai and the old man vaguely understood a few of the secrets behind deity transformation cultivators, and were greatly relieved by the certainty of their senior martial sister's words. The gray-robed old man worriedly said, "If it were only the old demon's incarnation, we might stand a chance of winning. We've fully released glacial chi from the island's restriction and blocked a majority of ordinary demon beasts from entering. Only ice-attributed demon beasts will be immune from the restriction." "It is no matter," the beautiful woman said. "The Ice Sea demon beasts will be dealt with using the treasures our ancestors have left behind. After all, the treasures were stored in our sect for countless years so that they would one day be used. We'll only need to take particular care of the demon beasts at grade 9 and above." Bai Yai and the old man unconsciously exchanged a glance before wearing an understanding gaze. The old man cracked a smile. "If Milady hadn't mentioned it, we would have nearly forgotten about the treasure. With that treasure, the Ice Sea demons will be useless. It is a pity it only works on their lower-grade demon beasts, or else it would be a great killing tool. That will be enough. Against the overbearing number of demons, the odds of defending ourselves aren't great. Let us use this time to evacuate the lower-grade disciples and only have our useful disciples stay behind. We'll be reducing meaningless deaths." "Yes, milady," both Bai Yai and the old man respectfully acknowledged. In the following days, the quiet sect was stirred into action. A strained atmosphere from the upcoming war seemed to blossom overnight. Not only were a majority of the sect's spell formation and restrictions activated, but there were masses of low-grade disciples evacuating from the sect. It was unknown where they went. 2 days after the three elders had their conversation, Arctic Dragon opened his eyes from meditation from within the great Yang Essence stone room down inside the profound Jade cave. He looked at the other cultivators that were meditating in the room and slowly said, "I previously explained the crucial points and techniques needed. With your talents, 2 days should be more than enough for you to comprehend what to do." With that said, the others began to slowly open their eyes. The monk smiled, "No problems on my end. I've already finished learning it a half-day earlier," the old woman boldly said. "I am also done," said Han Li. "By Mengson and the azure-robed middle-aged man, already done this ahead of time, of course. Since you're all ready, let's start. The process of breaking through my bottleneck can take anywhere to several days to many months. Regardless of the possibility of success, I hope you'll do your best until the end. In truth, I'm somewhat worried about the circumstances on the outside, so I hope for this to finish as soon as possible." Arctic Dragon spoke with a stiff expression. Naturally, the others raised no objections. Afterwards, Arctic Dragon and the palace elders took out bundles of formation flags and plates from their storage pouch and began to set them down in the cave, producing several wondrous spell formations. Although Han Li and the others didn't need to take action, they didn't want to miss an opportunity to observe any secret techniques. With ice flames lit on their bodies, they left the room and observed the actions of the North Night Palace cultivators. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the three palace elders finished placing down their formations. There was 3 overlapping spell formation placed with the hill of stones at its center. They created an imposing atmosphere with talisman characters flickering in the air. Arctic Dragon blurred, arriving mid-air and examining the spell formations. Then, he spun once around, flicking his fingers at the same time. He dozed a dozen spell seals at the spell formations, creating a dozen clouds of smoke that disappeared as soon as they appeared. The entire spell formation began to release low-pitched hums and brightly flicker. This seemed to agitate the profound jade glacial chi that filled the cave, causing it to splatter like water in boiling oil. As for the glacial chi concentrated on the large boulder on the center of the hill, it seemed to unaffected. Floating in the air, Arctic Dragon glanced around him and wore a satisfied expression. "Very good. The more profound jade glacial chi may be better, but first, we'll need to stabilize it to increase the odds of success." At that moment, Han Li's gaze dropped down to the hill of stones and saw the 5 pillars of light emerge from the spell formation with the huge boulder at their center. The pillars each glowed purple, red, white, black, and yellow, taking form from pure spiritual power. Threads of light continuously flowed in between each of the pillars, almost as if they were one whole entity. As soon as he saw the formation activate, Han Li flew off in an azure streak towards the purple pillar. Soon after, the light dimmed to reveal Han Li floating at the top of the pillar. The other 4 elders followed suit, each of them flying to their own pillar. They then exchanged a glance with one another and sat down, Han Li included. In accordance with the secret technique he was given, Han Li began to slowly circulate his magic power and summon the purple apex flames around his body with gradually increasing brilliance. Han Li suddenly shouted and formed a different hand gesture. Suddenly, a ball of purple light appeared from beneath him and changed into the form of a 3-meter-large lotus, delicate and beautiful. Han Li continued, lighting the purple apex flames from the lotus in an instant and provoking it to grow a half larger. Han Li's brow stirred in surprise when he saw this. Arctic Dragon hadn't mentioned that the spell formations would raise the powers of the glacial flames to this degree, so it came as quite a surprise. If he could get his hands on the formation, it could prove very useful. However, Han Li immediately noticed that, as the apex purple flames surged, the rate at which his magic power was consumed greatly increased. There seemed to be a flaw in increasing the power of the glacial flames. With that in mind, he looked at the cultivators on top of the other light pillars. The cultivators had done the same, producing glowing, nearly identical lotuses beneath them. They were all sitting above them and experiencing an increase in the flame's might. Han Li's gaze then shifted to the ball of glacial light floating near the cave walls. The wisp of great yin true flame was concealed there as it slowly absorbed the surrounding profound jade glacial chi. It had yet to be detected. Fortunately, Spirit Void Hall has restrictions surrounding it, else he wouldn't have dared to release the flame as it was intelligent. As Han Li still observed the great yin true flame, Arctic Dragon said, It seems you've all cultivated a certain degree of control over your frost flames. You should be able to hold out for a while. I am quite relieved. Next, I will enter the center of the glacial chi. Activate your glacial flames as was planned." After he said this, the celestial ice flames surrounding his body stirred and slowly descended upon the ball of white glacial chi. A series of rumblings sounded and blue flames twinkled, followed by Arctic Dragon entering the ball. Through some unknown method, the celestial ice flames and the profound Jade glacial chi hadn't reacted upon contact, causing the ball of white light to appear like. At that moment, the azure-robed middle-aged man and Bai Mingson flipped their hand, each producing a blue formation plate. They pressed the plate several times with practiced motions, causing the surrounding spell formations to create a barrier of rainbow light, enveloping all the cultivators present. Soon after, gales raged outside the barrier, but it completely concealed it from view and silenced its howls. In the other areas of the cave, their surging glacial chi had slowly returned to normal with the appearance of the gusts. The only thing out of place was a thread of scarlet flame hiding at the corner as it consumed the glacial lights around it. As time slowly passed by, the gales continued to roar around the hill of stones with no other sounds apart from the wind's howling. A week later, the demon beasts outside of North Night Island finally made their grand appearance. They were incoming from two directions, the mainland and the ice sea. Demonic chi and hostile intent drowned the air. There were a few clans and small sects that resided nearby, but they were naturally scared and fled. Against such a large oncoming force, North Night Palace immediately acquired information on it, and at the same time, they immediately lifted the restrictions on the island's heaven essence yin vein, causing the temperatures to massively drop, flooding the island with harsh glacial chi and snowstorms. The demons from the mainland, mostly from Myriad Demon Valley, were already prepared. They had their low-grade demon beasts stationed on the outskirts of the island, waiting as the island's store of glacial chi was exhausted. The tens of demon beasts that were above grade 6 entered the island in teams. A majority of the demon beasts from the ice sea had no fear of the glacial chi or storms of North Night Island, thus sending over 1,000 demon beasts directly towards North Night Palace. North Night Island wasn't very large, but when these demon beasts invaded, they seemed to disappear into the snowy landscape itself. But the high-grade cultivators of the palace wouldn't allow the demons to tread as they pleased. Drawing support from their spell formations and island's glacial chi, they immediately set off to kill the demon invaders. Several near-transparent demon beasts flew at the top of the white snowstorms and stealthily moved forward in the winterland. These demon beasts were known as glacial imps, born from glacial chi. Although they were only grade 6 demon beasts, their ruthless cold that froze the air posed little threat to them. Rather, they moved through it with vigor, much like a fish in water. Suddenly, the glacial imp leading them stopped. Its several eyes opened on both of its sides as it doubtfully looked in a certain direction within the snowstorm. The other imps had stopped and done the same. Suddenly, the sounds of tearing air sounded, and several red threads broke through the winds. At incredible speeds, they penetrated the imps. With the sharp cracks of their demon cores splitting into two, the imps lifelessly dropped to the ground. At that moment, a silhouette slowly emerged from within the storm, a female North Night Palace cultivator who wore a white cloak. Her emotionless eyes observed the fluttering snow for just a moment before blurring out of sight once more. In an area 50 kilometers away, there was a 6-meter-tall figure with an ox head. It was walking across the sparkling surface of a frozen lake. A pair of pitch-black horns jutted from its head, and its fur flickered with blue light. It carried a huge saber on its back, and his buttocks twisted in a ridiculous clumsiness as it walked. But if a human cultivator were to see this demon beast, they wouldn't be laughing by any stretch, as the figure was grade 7 demon beast on the verge of metamorphosis. Due to North Night Island's fully activated restrictions, all demon beasts below grade 8 were forced to tread through the ground, resulting in those less skilled in movement techniques to move forward at a snail's pace. Suddenly, the huge saber on the demon beast's back blurred and seemingly disappeared from sight. A huge boom soon followed, along with a miserable cry. A wide and immensely deep cut had appeared on the surface of the lake. The bull-headed demon then began to leisurely examine it. In the blink of an eye, mists of blood spouted from the cracks as well as a bisected corpse. From its clothes, it appeared to belong to a disciple from North Night Palace. The disciple used ice movement techniques to move underneath the lake in preparation to ambush the demon, but he was seen through, and was executed in a single strike. With a trace of savage cruelty on its face, the demon reached out with its hand and summoned the corpse half into its grasp. It widely opened its mouth and chomped down. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the corpse half filled the demon's stomach to satisfaction. Similar scenes of slaughter occurred throughout North Night Island, of low-grade demon beasts being ambushed and cultivators being devoured. However, all battles taking place were against low-grade demon beasts and cultivators at core formation stage and below. Nascent soul cultivators and grade 8 demon beasts, however, didn't seem to notice these battles as one side stayed inside their city of ice and the other rushed through the snowstorms. It wasn't that the high-grade demon beasts didn't want to kill the palace's low-grade cultivators, but rather, it was difficult to find them amidst the snowstorms and activated restrictions, not to mention these cultivators were skilled in various evasion techniques. A few of these North Night Palace cultivators even wore particular magic tools that concealed their scent, making it even more difficult to discover them. Letter 1D557, letter 1D42B, letter 1D68T, letter 1D5F2, letter 1D604, letter 1D41E. Letter 1D41C, letter 1D698, letter 1D696. Even if these demons managed to kill a few cultivators on occasion, it would do little to affect the war as a whole. It would be better for them to conserve their strength for the upcoming battle. Every sliver of magic power is significant in a battle of life and death after all. When the many demons drew close to the City of Ice, the beautiful middle-aged Elder Liu was sitting inside a hall in the hidden Arctic Dragon boundary. Sitting across from her were 2 rows of North Night Palace elders, all of them listening to the reports of a white-clothed palace disciple. The disciple respectfully said, of the 100 high-grade disciples that were dispatched, 37 of their life soul tiles were shattered. From the information we've acquired, there were 127 demon beasts killed, a majority of them being from the Ice Sea. We've already dispatched the second wave of disciples. It should take about 2 hours before they group up with the first wave. After a brief pause, Elder Liu commanded, 37 disciples have already perished in battle. It should be about time for them to be a few thousand kilometers from the city. Notify Elder Yi that the sea calming bell will be used in 2 hours. We'll be inflicting heavy losses on the low-grade demon beasts. It would be greatly troublesome if we allowed a large number of pests to bother us. Yes, Palace Lord. A white-haired elder with a childlike face immediately waved his hand and released a sound transmission, sending it out of the hall. The woman then, Junior Marshal Brother Ding, make sure the grand formation is fully activated. I suspect that using this treasure will incite the high-grade demon beasts out of grief for their lesser brethren. Yes, the other elder flew off as soon as he gave his reply. In addition, you'll need to inform the disciples outside of the city to be careful. The suppression of the sea calming bell will only last a half hour at most. After that, it'll be over 100 years before we'll be able to use it again. After the elapsed time had passed, the disciples are to immediately return to the city and seal off the secret teleportation formations. We can't have the demons use them to invade. As you command. With a string of commands uttered, the other elders began to move and carry out her orders. Hundreds of kilometers away from the icy city, a large group of high-grade demons arrived on top of a small ice mountain. They were at the very edge of the North Night Palace's protective grand formation. As they looked at the glacial mist flying in front of them, the metamorphosed demons wore a solemn expression. These demons clearly belonged to 2 groups. One group numbered about a dozen and were surrounding a tall old man and a short child. The other group consisted of over 20 and were escorting a slender, silver-clothed woman. But oddly enough, these demons all looked quite ordinary. Apart from a few discrepancies in their appearance, they were no different than human cultivators. And even stranger was how each group looked at each other with contempt. The larger group of demons wore hateful expressions and clothes made of fur. There were even those that left their chest uncovered. They carried a large assortment of weapons in either their hands or back. They also hung storage pouches made of hide on their waist. While it was unknown why they didn't keep their weapons there, these demon beasts emitted violent intent as they gazed at the other group. The 2 groups of demon beasts faced one another with a clear gap between them. But if any cultivator were to come across them, they would fearfully run away. They were all metamorphosed demon beasts at grade 8 and higher. The old man, the child, and the silver-clothed woman in particular were grade 10 demon beasts. Such power would likely be able to instantly crush any of the 10 great sects of the righteous or devilish Tao. High-grade demon beasts were already more powerful than their equivalently ranked cultivator counterparts. The black-robed old man amongst them had a stern and squarish face with spirited eyes. His gray hair faintly glowed with azure light, overall producing an aura of self-confidence. Next to him was the boy that appeared 7 years old with a delicate, nearly otherworldly appearance. His irises were faintly red and he wore a faint smile. The silver-robed woman facing him had snow-white skin and beauty capable of toppling nations. However, this gorgeous woman was escorted by many formidable high-grade demons who didn't dare to meet her gaze. They looked down as if in fear. The old man said with a chuckle, "Fairy Feng, I didn't expect that these North Night Palace cultivators were truly willing to attack. They actually released the glacial chi they were accumulating for nearly 1,000 years. I'll have to see how they respond when they encounter another great enemy in the future." The woman's expression stirred and she coldly said, "Fellow Taoist Qing, why do you ask despite knowing the answer? The North Night Palace cultivators do not know that our objective this time isn't the glacial quintessence, so it is natural for them to hold nothing back. Otherwise." The child then opened his mouth and spoke with an aged, raspy voice. "However, I am quite surprised to see that fellow Taoist Feng had personally made an appearance. For over 2,000 years, you've entered seclusion in the icy depths." The silver-robed woman shifted her gaze to the child and calmly said, "If it were for anything else apart from passage up to the spirit realm, I wouldn't have left. Didn't you also send your incarnation over here?" The child narrowed his eyes and chuckled. "I didn't expect you to readily agree with my proposal. How surprising. It seems you've been dissatisfied with North Night Island since long ago and have thought about exterminating Fairy Ice Soul's line of cultivators in the mortal realm. Fellow Taoist Feng, you are relying rather heavily on the power of our myriad demon valley." Without betraying the slightest emotion from her voice or face, the silver-clothed woman said, "In the past, before Fairy Ice Soul ascended, she made use of her grand abilities to freeze over the ice depth mountains for over 100 years and forced us to avoid the North Night Palace cultivators to a certain degree. But after so many years have passed, I have no choice but to take action now that the matter relates to ascension to the spirit realm. Rather, is Brother Chi worried about losing your incarnation after putting so much effort into developing it?" The child let out a cackle. "If it is as you say, this trip will be well worth it even if there must be sacrifice. I only didn't expect for the most possible location for a spatial node to be located in spatial tier inside North Night Palace's Spirit Void Hall. If it weren't for the fact I sent men to investigate this several times, I wouldn't have personally taken action. After all, the North Night Palace is quite powerful. They will not be easily destroyed." The silver-robed woman's eyes flickered to the boy. A spatial node would only be able to continue to exist until now in a spatial tier as large as the one inside Spirit Void Hall. I've heard you say that you've already checked the other area and found nothing. If we find nothing here as well, what do you plan on doing from now on?" The boy was silent for a moment before letting out a cold laugh. "It's very simple. I'll just continue in my search for spatial nodes. In the past, the ancient cultivators managed to find it for themselves. Why can't I do the same? But we do not have much time left. It is said you were the descendant of an ancient demon from the spirit realm. Not only are your abilities vast, but your lifespan is much longer than other demon beasts. But even you must feel your time running thin after all these years. Didn't you already use a secret technique to seal your true body and prolong your life? Again, why do you ask something you already know the answer to?" The child's expression sank as if hurt by what she said. The silver-robed woman sighed and looked at the grand formation in the distance with a lost expression. "You can't continue to ignore the problem. You don't have much time left. A few days ago, I acquired information about the 5 dragon seas. Eccentric White Deer had perished from age. He is a descendant of a heavenly spirit beast and cultivated ever since the ancient battle against the cultivators. Ordinarily, when one's lifespan becomes bleak, they seal their true body, but that is life without purpose, leading to an unavoidable death." With a strange light flowing from the "that's why I am willing to take any risk to find any spatial nodes. If fellow Taoist Phoenix is willing, how about we work together? Let's wait until after you find the spatial node. North Night Palace will not be so easily defeated." "Please don't worry about that, Fairy Phoenix. In the past, our myriad demon valley have launched attacks several times against their city of ice, forcing the human cultivators to hide in Spirit Void Hall each time. We'll be relying on your abilities to use the spatial tier in Spirit Void Hall." That reassuring. Our Ice Phoenix clan's innate abilities to tear space shouldn't disappoint you, the woman replied with a smile. At that moment, only those 3 demons spoke. All of the other demons didn't dare to open their mouths as if they had forgotten they were there. The child faintly smiled and thought to say something when his expression changed, and he raised his head to look into the distance. The old man and the woman sensed something an instant later and turned to look with amazement. They felt a wave of astonishing spiritual pressure surge from within the glacial mist, soon stretching beyond them. In the next moment, a bell ring overlapping with a dragon roar filled the air. The grade 8 and 9 icy demon beasts escorting Fairy Phoenix became disoriented from the sound. However, those from Myriad Demon Valley felt completely fine. They looked at the ice sea demon beasts with confusion. As the silver-robed woman was a grade 10 demon beast, the bell had little effect on her. But when she heard this, she let out a furious shout, "The sea calming bell! That is one of the treasures of the Ice Sea clan." So it had fallen into the hands of Fairy Ice Soul at the time. When the old man and the child heard this, they exchanged a glance and revealed their surprise. Nevertheless, whatever effect the bell had on the metamorphosed Ice Sea demons only lasted for a moment. The affected demons released their demonic chi and released their protective treasure, immediately vanishing the influence of the bell rings apart from some lingering dizziness. When the white-robed woman saw this, her tense face somewhat relaxed, but her body soon blurred as something came to mind, and she immediately soared up in a ball of shining light. Soon after, shining light ruptured in the air, releasing countless fine streaks that soon disappeared. A moment later, the light faded, and the woman floated down onto the ice mountain with a pale complexion. The old man frowned and slowly said, "Did anything happen?" Fairy Phoenix used quite a bit of magic power to conduct a search with her spiritual sense. The woman snorted, and an icy glint shined from her eye. At the same time the North Night Palace used Sea Calming Bell, a large number of cultivators were sent to slaughter our low-grade demons. Although I could only sense a small area, a large number of them have already been slain. "Truly?" the child pensively asked. "Long ago, I did hear of such a strange treasure existing that would disable the bodies of ice-attributed demon beasts. Could that have been the Sea Calming Bell? How did that fall into the hands of those human cultivators?" She let out a deep sigh and recovered her. "No, that treasure is nowhere as powerful as was said from the legends. It is only a replica of a spirit treasure. Grade 8 demon beasts and above are barely affected by it, as they can block the effects of the bell rings with their magic power. But lower-grade demons will greatly lose their strength. The treasure had mysteriously disappeared when Fairy Ice Soul froze over our Profound Depths Island." The old man twirled his beard and asked, "It seems Fairy Ice Soul left it behind as one of the methods to restrain your Ice Sea clan. What do you plan to do now, fellow Taoist Phoenix? Will you send anyone to save your subordinates?" After mulling over the matter, there's no point. The effects of the Sea Calming Bell lasts for only a moment. By the time we arrive, it will already be too late. Even if all of my subordinates perished, it wouldn't harm the strength of my clan. And that is impossible in the first place. With the aid of the Sea Calming Bell, it'll be lucky if they can even kill half of them. Nevertheless, I will remember this despicable act. Listen well. When we enter the North Night Palace, we will exterminate all of the low-grade cultivators that remain outside of Spirit Void Hall." The ice sea beasts accompanying her all let out a grunt of acknowledgement. The child chuckled and said, "That is fine. Let's start by breaking the formation. Our Myriad Demon Valley low-grade followers will be completely unaffected. So long as the glacial chi disperses, we'll lend our strength. But before then, we'll need to destroy their grand formation first." Then he opened his mouth and spat out a ball of black chi, unveiling itself in front of them as a small gray formation flag. When the silver-clothed woman saw the flag, her heart stirred and she quickly examined it. The flag was only 6 inches large and was enveloped in a layer of gray light. Phantoms of countless demon beasts revealed themselves from the flag's surface. It was entirely silent, running contrary to their ferocious images. The silver-robed woman looked at the banner before glancing at the child. "Could that be your valley's Myriad Demon banner?" The child proudly said, "Fellow Taoist Phoenix is quite perceptive. It has been soaked in the demonic chi for tens of thousands of years. Its power is beyond imagination. Although my incarnation will not be able to display the full power of the banner, with your assistance the grand formation shouldn't last more than a few days." He pressed his hands together and struck the formation flag with a gray spell seal. Gray light flourished and the small banner whirled in the air. The myriad of demon beast phantoms it revealed violently stirred. When the silver-robed woman saw this, she nodded and shouted a command. The demons escorting her soared into the air and spat out mist or magic treasures. The old man expressionlessly let out his own chain of orders as well. The myriad Demon Valley members flew high up and released their treasures. In the following moment, demon winds nearly enveloped half the sky. The child bellowed in laughter when he saw this, but his face soon grew tense, uttering a cryptic incantation. The myriad demon banner grew massively in conjunction to the incantations. The chants continued for the time it took to finish a cup of tea. In that time, the flagpole turned meter-wide and became a towering 300 meters tall. Each of the demon beast phantoms on the banner's surface appeared true to life and flew. Go, the child let out a thunderous shout and urged the spell to activate. Violent roars deafeningly roared from the phantoms on the banner's surface, each of them emitting demonic chi from their mouths. The clouds of it clashed against the white glacial chi enveloping the air. The metamorphosed demons displayed their might as well and charged forward. At the same time, a dozen silhouettes appeared amidst the glacial chi, hidden within the grand formation. Their hands lit up with light before rushing to confront the demons. In the blink of an eye, the war was about to unravel.